Chapter 411. Deng Baoyan retorted, "Do you know how much Yujia spends every month? Do you think that Yujia wants to marry you so that she can go back to the countryside with you and live a life worse than pigs and dogs?" Papa Fruit was dumbfounded. It wasn't because he didn't know how much young Yujia spent every month, but because he just realized that there was such a big misunderstanding between him and Deng Baoyan. However, before he could argue, Deng Baoyan began to scold him again. "Let's not talk about money first," Deng Baoyan said with a look of disdain. "You said that you can give Yujia happiness, but where can you give her happiness? You are a single father with a child. Do you want Yujia to marry you and be your stepmother? Even if Yujia is willing to give up this face, our Zheng family can't afford to lose this face. I really don't understand. How can a man with a family like you dare to pester Yujia, who is such a good girl?" Deng Baoyan scolded indignantly. "Annie, wait a minute." Papa Fruit couldn't help it. No matter how impolite he was, he had to interrupt Deng Baoyan. He said, "You may have misunderstood. I didn't say that I want Yujia to marry me." "What?" When Papa Fruit said this, Deng Baoyan was even more furious. "Are you still a man? Do you still want to be irresponsible after eating her?" Deng Baoyan's temper was like that. When she was angry, her words were a little indiscriminate. Papa Fruit was shocked. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Auntie, you're wrong. I have never done anything disrespectful to Yujia." He silently added in his heart, "At most, your eyes have seen some things that you shouldn't have seen." If before Deng Baoyan only looked down on Poplar Fruit's family background and his fatal flaw, now she really looked down on Poplar Fruit. She sneered. "I didn't expect you to be a person who dares to do things but doesn't dare to admit it. I understand now. You just want to play with women, cheat Yujia's feelings, and then leave. You're wrong. I'll tell you." Deng Baoyan slammed the table, and a trace of fierceness flashed in her eyes. She scolded, "You can't afford to provoke our Zheng family. How did it become a fight to the death?" Poplar Fruit really didn't understand. At this time, he didn't say something meaningless like, "I'm afraid of you," but racked his brains to explain it to Deng Baoyan. "Auntie, I swear to God, I really didn't cheat Yujia's feelings." Poplar Fruit said seriously, "You said that I play with women. I can promise you that I didn't do anything wrong to Yujia. We're not in the kind of relationship you think. We're innocent. I'm friends with Yujia, just friends." In the end, Poplar Fruit's confession was almost shouted out. His feelings were very sincere, and he didn't drag it out. In fact, he should have explained it clearly. After quarreling with Deng Baoyan for so long, the quarrel went in the direction of misunderstanding. Wouldn't the two of them be more and more divided? Poplar Fruit's words made Deng Baoyan's anger disappear. She frowned and stared at Poplar Fruit and asked, "What did you say?" "I said that I'm purely friends with Yujia." Poplar Fruit bitterly smiled. "It has always been like that. How is that possible?" Deng Baoyan raised her voice. She didn't believe in Poplar Fruit's words. "It's true," Poplar Fruit sincerely said. "Auntie, I'm not lying to you. I have a girl that I like, and she's in Yangqing City. Why would I cheat?" Hearing those words from Poplar Fruit, Deng Baoyan was even more doubtful. She had seen the photos of Poplar Fruit with Fong Beibei and Duan Xueqing. At this moment, she was even more convinced that Poplar Fruit was a playboy. She sneered, "You might not be two-timing, but I'm afraid that you're three-timing, right?" Poplar Fruit was stunned. He immediately thought of the reason why Deng Baoyan said that. He bitterly smiled. "Annie, don't say that. I'm not as bad as you think. You might have heard Li Zichao's rumors." In order to explain, Poplar Fruit carefully explained everything to Deng Baoyan. Naturally, Poplar Fruit hid the romance between him and Zheng Yujia. "So you're saying that you're just an accidental shield?" Deng Baoyan was 70% convinced by Poplar Fruit's explanation. She didn't trust Li Zichao's character, and Poplar Fruit's explanation was more believable. When she said those words, Deng Baoyan's expression wasn't as ugly as before. Poplar Fruit nodded his head. "Then why is what you told me completely different from what Yujia told me?" Deng Baoyan pressed on. "At home, our Yujia keeps saying that she won't marry anyone but you. Tell me, who should I believe?" "That's right. On one hand, she said that she loved him wholeheartedly, but on the other hand, she said that they were just friends. There was obviously something wrong. Poplar Fruit was dripping with cold sweat. He didn't expect Zheng Yujie to confess to her mother. Poplar Fruit was conflicted. How should he answer? Say that he didn't like Zheng Yujie at all? Was it because Zheng Yujie kept pestering him? No matter what, Poplar Fruit wouldn't say such a thing. He couldn't embarrass Yujie too much. He thought about what to say in his heart. Auntie, this is all my fault. I asked Yujie to lie to you. Poplar Fruit could only bite the bullet and lie. At that time, I wanted to be a shield, so I did it thoroughly. I thought that if you knew about Yujie's feelings, you wouldn't force her to marry that Lisa Chow. Was that really the case? A mother knows her daughter best. Deng Baoyan didn't think that her daughter was lying through her teeth when she revealed her feelings to her. At that time, the determination in Zheng Yujie's eyes couldn't be faked. But I can swear to you, Auntie, that Yujie and I are absolutely innocent. We're just friends. Poplar Fruit looked at Deng Baoyan carefully and said. He didn't know how many times he had said this oath today. After Poplar Fruit finished speaking, Deng Baoyan was silent. The whole room fell into a very subtle atmosphere. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to breathe. He looked at Deng Baoyan in fear, waiting for her to deal with him. When Deng Baoyan heard Poplar Fruit's words, she remembered her daughter's infatuation with the big boy in front of her. She couldn't help but get angry. Why don't you like our families, Yujie? Deng Baoyan suddenly broke the silence and asked in a bad mood. The topic suddenly changed. Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. Wasn't she just condemning him for playing with Zheng Yujie's feelings? Why was she blaming him for not accepting Zheng Yujie's feelings now? Our family's Yujie is beautiful, capable, and rich. Why don't you like her? After Deng Baoyan knew that Poplar Fruit had a girl he liked and didn't fall in love with Zheng Yujie, she was very unhappy. She couldn't help but ask Poplar Fruit what was wrong with Zheng Yujie. Chapter 412. Deng Baoyan said those words out of anger, but Poplar Fruit was choked by such a big turn of events. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty, scratched his head, and said, Auntie, Yujie is a very good girl, and also a very good friend of mine. But when it comes to feelings, you can't force it. Moreover, I already have a girlfriend. Poplar Fruit silently scolded himself for being shameless. Fong Bei hadn't even agreed yet, and he was already calling her his girlfriend? However, the situation was urgent, and he couldn't care so much. First, he had to let Zheng Yujie's mother feel at ease. After calming down, Deng Baoyan regretted saying those words. She even asked him why he didn't like her daughter. It was as if no one wanted her daughter. She had really thrown the Zheng family's face away. However, in her heart, Deng Baoyan was still a little unhappy. She felt that things shouldn't be going down this path. The script should be written like this. Poplar Fruit was infatuated with the Zheng family's eldest daughter and admired the Zheng family's power, so he kept pestering her. Why did it sound like Poplar Fruit was unwilling, but she had to send her daughter to him? Why didn't he like Yujie? Deng Baoyan looked at Poplar Fruit with an unfriendly gaze, which made Poplar Fruit's heart in a mess. Luckily, Deng Baoyan didn't make a mistake again. She calmed down and said, All right, I understand what you mean. Then hurry up and scram as far as you can. Don't appear in front of Yujie again. Deng Baoyan's poisonous tongue still didn't change, and the words she said were very harsh. No matter how respectful Poplar Fruit was, he couldn't help but ask in dissatisfaction, Auntie, what do you mean by that? What do I mean? Don't you understand? Deng Baoyan chuckled and said, Stop pestering Yujie. You're not welcome in the capital. Poplar Fruit was angry. He retorted, First, I didn't pester Yujie. We're good friends. It's normal for us to keep in touch. Second, I came to Beijing for work. Why can't you let me come? How can you be so overbearing? Is Beijing owned by your family? Poplar Fruit had always been amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. The more you forced him to do something, the stronger the Poplar Fruit would be. What a joke, Deng Baoyan said. You said that you didn't pester Yujie. Why does Yujie miss you every day? You came to the capital to pester her. The quarrel between the two once again escalated to the level of slapping the table. Deng Baoyan slapped the table fiercely and said sternly, If you're a man, then don't meet Yujie again. Let Yujie completely give up on you. Don't be stupid. Yujia's man in the future will definitely be a young master of equal social status. How can a country bumpkin like you look up to him? Are you going to push Yujia into another pit of fire? Poplar Fruit didn't care much about Deng Baoyan's discrimination against him. He cared more about Zheng Yujia. He retorted, "Do you think Yujia will be happy with a political marriage? You don't have to worry. There's so many big families in the capital. There's so many young talents. We will choose the most suitable man for Yujia." Deng Baoyan sneered. Suitable for Yujia? That's what you think, right? Poplar Fruit said sarcastically. If Yujia doesn't love him, how can she be happy? Thinking that Zheng Yujia was forced to marry a man she didn't love by her family, Poplar Fruit was very unhappy. He even argued with Deng Baoyan, racking his brains to find a reason to fight for Zheng Yujia. He didn't realize that his concern seemed to be a bit excessive. It seemed to be more than just worry. When he heard that Deng Baoyan wanted him to leave Zheng Yujia forever, his emotions were mixed with some reluctance and resistance. This emotion was very subtle and complicated. With Poplar Fruit's EQ, he definitely couldn't detect it at this moment. However, this emotion had already affected his answer. It seemed that he was very emotional about Zheng Yujia. Young man, Deng Baoyan ridiculed. Love is just a moment of passion. Do you think that in a big family like ours, there will still be love? Then I can't just watch as Yujia is forced to marry someone she doesn't like. Poplar Fruit finished and added, as a good friend, I will definitely support her choice. Her choice is you. Is this how you support her? Deng Baoyan mocked. I respect her choice. Although I can't give her love, I believe that she will be able to find her true love in the future. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, why are all of you so stubborn? Deng Baoyan was angry. She rolled her eyes and pretended to be calm as she said, it's because she can't break up with you. You've been entangled with her in the capital. How can she find her true love? Deng Baoyan changed from a poisonous tongue to a well-meaning one. She said, listen to Andy's advice. Go back to Guangdong province and love your girlfriend. Don't contact Yuji anymore. She'll be able to see past it. Poplar Fruit wasn't that stupid. He shook his head and said, I will explain the matter between Yujia and me clearly to her. Anyway, I can't be your accomplice. Poplar Fruit's stubbornness was the same as Zheng Yujia's. Both of them were idealists. After believing in their own judgment, they wouldn't listen to anything others said. Sometimes this was a good thing. At least, Poplar Fruit wouldn't be bewitched by Deng Baoyan now. Deng Baoyan was provoked by Poplar Fruit's words and wanted to scold him again. Poplar Fruit said first, Auntie, don't say anymore. I'm on Yujia's side. As a friend, I will always support her choice. But please don't worry. I didn't cheat Yujia's feelings in the past, and I won't in the future. I will clarify our relationship with Yujia. She will understand. Deng Baoyan took in deep breaths. She looked at Poplar Fruit's eyes, trying to find some traces of lies, but she couldn't find any. Poplar Fruit's clear eyes were very sincere. There was nothing to talk about. Yanghua had made it clear that he was stubborn. Deng Baoyan didn't say anything more. She just looked deeply at Poplar Fruit, pushed the chair away, and stood up. She straightened her clothes, turned around, and walked out of the door. Let's go, Deng Baoyan ordered. The bodyguards who had been standing in front of her expressionlessly just now followed closely. They didn't even look at Poplar Fruit, nor did they say goodbye. The three of them left just like that. Poplar Fruit was a little uncomfortable. They came in such an aggressive manner, but left without even saying goodbye. Was this the style of a big family? Shaking his head, Poplar Fruit returned to the bedroom. He saw that Kiki had already gotten under the quilt, only sticking out her small head to look outside. Poplar Fruit laughed and carried her out. He kissed Kiki's little face and said with a smile, Why did you get under the quilt? That grandma is so scary. Kiki hugged her father's neck and said with lingering fear, Papa wants to protect Kiki. Yes, Papa is here. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, It's okay now. She's gone. Chapter 4:13. After putting down his phone, Poplar Fruit walked back to Kiki. He waved his hand and smiled. Kiki, it seems like we'll have to stay here for a few more days. Yanghua had just called the production crew of unexpectedly, and wanted to return to the set to help out. In the end, Ming Shou told him that the remaining scenes would be completed in 2 days. If Yang Guo went back now, he would have to come back the next day. It was better not to go. It would be too troublesome. Poplar Fruit thought about it and agreed. He didn't need to agree to Meng Shou's arrangement. He just needed to wait for the crew to come back and attend the banquet. Poplar Fruit owed him a lot of meals, so he could treat him to a banquet. "Papa, let's go home, okay?" Kiki hugged her Barbie doll and raised her head pitifully. Kiki, are you homesick?" Poplar Fruit squatted down and held Kiki's hand lovingly. Kiki shook her head and snuggled into her father's arms. She leaned into her father's ear and said softly, "That grandma is so fierce. Kiki's grandma is so nice. Kiki misses grandma." Poplar Fruit had a headache. He still had things to do in Beijing. How could he go back to his hometown just like that? However, Poplar Fruit didn't want to disappoint his daughter. He had an idea and took out his computer. He first called his mother, Su Jinfeng, and asked her to QQ. This year, the living conditions at home were getting better and better. His elder sister had given his parents a new smartphone and a computer in their bedroom. Now, Su Jinfeng used it to watch those soap operas on the internet every day. "Kiki, let's video call Grandma, okay?" Poplar Fruit smiled and put his daughter on his lap. He pointed the camera of his laptop at them. Chi-Chi was very curious. She didn't know what her father was going to do by taking out this television that she could watch with joy. She also didn't understand what a video call was, so she just nodded out of habit and observed her father's movements. Poplar Fruit clicked on the computer with the mouse and then said to Su Jinfeng on the phone, "Mom, I'm sending a video call request now. Please accept it." Kiki glanced at her phone and didn't notice that a video call window had appeared on the computer. "Kiki, hello, I heard that you miss Grandma, right?" Su Jinfeng's voice suddenly came from the computer. Kiki was shocked. She clutched the corner of Poplar Fruit's clothes tightly and looked around, but she couldn't find her grandmother. "There she is." Poplar Fruit touched Kiki's little arm and pointed to the computer screen. Kiki looked in the direction of her father's finger, and her eyes lit up. She saw her grandmother waving at her from the computer. "Huh?" Kiki laughed. She raised her head and took her father's hand. She said happily to her father, "Papa, Grandma is on TV. Grandma is on TV." Poplar Fruit smiled and explained, "Grandma is not on TV. Grandma is on a video call with you. It's the same as a phone call." Chi-Chi nodded as if she didn't fully understand. Poplar Fruit smiled and waved at his mother. He asked, "Mom, can you hear me?" He had turned off the phone, and now he was talking through the microphone hole of the laptop. He had never used it before, so he didn't know how it would sound. "Yes, I can hear you clearly," Su Jinfeng said with a smile. Poplar Fruit's computer was an Apple laptop bought from the United States this year. It had the highest configuration, and the camera was a FaceTime HD camera. Of course, it looked clear. "Come, Kiki, say hello to Grandma." Poplar Fruit smiled and took Kiki's little hand. "Grandma, hello," Kiki said in a childish voice. However, she was speaking in Mandarin. Although Kiki had learned a lot of Poplar Fruit's native language, it was still difficult for her to convert. Poplar Fruit didn't think much of it, but the older generation felt that if a child didn't learn their native language, they would forget their ancestors. Therefore, Su Jinfeng smiled and replied, "Yes." Then, she tried to persuade Kiki to speak their native language with her grandmother. Chi-Chi was very talented when it came to languages. Under the deliberate guidance of her grandmother, she also boldly opened her mouth to speak the dialect of her hometown. Although she stumbled and occasionally mixed in Mandarin, she spoke it very well. Su Jinfeng chatted happily with her granddaughter and completely forgot about her son, Poplar Fruit. Even when she closed the video call window, she didn't say much to Poplar Fruit. It was as if Kiki had used up all the talking time. After the video call, Kiki didn't pester Poplar Fruit and say that she wanted to go home. But now there was another problem. Kiki began to pester Poplar Fruit to have a video call with Fong Bei Bei. He didn't know how her little brain developed. She was only a little more than 1 year old, but she already knew how to draw inferences. But in the end, Poplar Fruit was the one who was in a dilemma. Fong Bei Bei said that they would be separated for 2 months and that they would meet again during the holidays. She didn't even answer his phone. Would she agree to have a video call with Kiki? Poplar Fruit rubbed Kiki's little face and persuaded. Kiki, Sister Bebe, is not free. She has gone to a very, very far place. When she comes back, we will go and find her, okay? Kiki immediately pouted. She shook her head and said, Papa, you're lying. Bebe won't abandon Kiki. Seeing that her father didn't move, she immediately shed tears of grievance. She pursed her lips and cried, Kiki wants Bebe, Kiki wants Bebe. Poplar Fruit had a headache and wanted to hug Kiki to comfort her. But this time, Kiki lost her temper, which was rare. She desperately twisted on Poplar Fruit's thigh and cried loudly. She was determined to not turn back until she hit the south wall. Kiki was rarely so disobedient, but when she was willful, Poplar Fruit really couldn't do anything to her. He had tried before, but she didn't listen to him. She cried until she was tired and fell asleep. Then she woke up and cried again. Okay. Papa will call Bebe right now. Poplar Fruit helplessly raised his hands to surrender. Seeing that Kiki still didn't stop, he quickly took out his phone and dialed. The first time, Fong Bebe didn't pick up. The second time, Fong Bebe still didn't pick up. It wasn't until the third time that Fong Bebe finally picked up. She was angry at Poplar Fruit and said, Didn't you say that you're not allowed to call me in these 2 months? Do you know that my father was right next to me just now? He almost found out. I'm sorry, Kiki is too annoying. She wants to video call you. I can't do anything about it. Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile. Look at how she cried. Hearing Kiki's cry from the phone, Fong Bebe's anger suddenly disappeared. She said helplessly, Alas, I really don't know what to do with you. Wait a minute, I'll go back to my room and turn on the computer. In the end, she didn't forget to add, You're not allowed to peek. Remember our agreement. Chi-Chi got her wish and met Fong Bebe through the computer's webcam, while Yang was stood pitifully to the side. His heart itched to listen to Fong Bebe's bell-like laughter, but he couldn't go over to take a look. He gloomily looked at his daughter's tear-stained face and was extremely envious. Alas, why is my status so low? Chapter 4:15. Poplar Fruit had been playing with Kiki in Beijing for 2 days without informing Zheng Yujie. He had thought about whether he should invite Zheng Yujie, but then he thought about it. Beijing was the Zheng family's territory, and his every move might be under their surveillance. The most important thing was that he had promised Zheng Yujie's mother that their relationship was pure. Deng Baoyan had just left, and he had asked Zheng Yujie out. What did that mean? However, after Wan Hetiani and the others returned from the mountains, Poplar Fruit had no choice but to inform Zheng Yujie about the celebratory feast. Now that both of them were shareholders of Wanha, it would be unreasonable if he didn't invite her. Zheng Yujie was carefree. She didn't ask what Poplar Fruit had been doing for the past 2 days like my daughter. When she saw Poplar Fruit, she was as natural as usual, which made Poplar Fruit secretly sigh in relief. This celebratory feast was also called a wrap party. Poplar Fruit had initially chosen the Grand Capitol Hotel, but they didn't allow filming equipment in, so he had no choice but to give up. In the end, he changed to a 5-star hotel. In a large private room, 2 tables were filled with people. The whole process would be filmed, and when the time came, a few scenes would be edited as highlights. The hotel's dishes were very sumptuous, and the speed at which they were served was also very fast. The cast and crew had just rushed over and sat down when all kinds of cold dishes and exotic delicacies were placed on the table. The beautiful waitresses in Chong Sam's were like butterflies, weaving in and out of the crowd and pouring red wine for everyone. Everyone, please be quiet. Before we eat, I'll say a few words. Before the banquet started, it was time for the directors and actors to speak. Calling Beast was the first to stand up. The micro-movie this time was a big breakthrough for Calling Beast. From the filming process, he was very satisfied. After so many years as a podcaster, Calling Beast had a very accurate grasp of the audience's preferences. He was sure that this micro-movie would be very popular after it was released, so when he stood up at the microphone, he was very proud and pleased with himself. Today, I'm very happy to announce that our unexpectedly micro-movie has finally finished filming. Calling Beast shouted loudly. To everyone's hard work over the past month, cheers. Cheers. Everyone laughed and raised a red wine in their hands, clinking it with each other. Poplar Fruit didn't drink, and he didn't make an exception today. The glass he raised was filled with cola, but he still clinked glasses with others. Drinking was just a formality. What he wanted was this joyous atmosphere. Kiki looked on curiously, sucking on a small straw in her mouth. She sat in the BB seat, protecting her small glass with a small cup of coconut juice in it. It was a rare occasion like this, so Poplar Fruit also let his daughter have a drink. Soft drinks couldn't be given to Kiki. Children's teeth were too delicate and couldn't withstand the invasion of soft drinks. Calling Beast wasn't done yet. He stood up and said a lot of touching words, counting the hard work that everyone had put in to make this micro-movie, making everyone's eyes turn red. However, after he talked about 10 people, Baika raised his glass and purposely disrupted the atmosphere. Calling Beast, if you continue, the food will get cold. Huh! Everyone roared with laughter, and the touching atmosphere disappeared. There was nothing left to say, and only a few of the main actors were left. Calling Beast didn't continue and smiled. All right, I won't talk nonsense. I just want to tell you that we didn't expect to be able to finish filming so smoothly. It's all thanks to everyone here. I thank everyone on behalf of the company. With that, Calling Beast bowed deeply to everyone's applause and sat down. He patted Old by beside him, Wana CEO, who had just finished a negotiation and rushed back to attend the celebration party. I'll say a few words too. Olbai stood up and smiled. I know that everyone can't help but look at the delicious food, so I'll make it short. 2 things. First of all, everyone knows that I went to many video websites to get the best conditions for us. Today, I'm back with good news. Olbai said with a smile. He paused here to keep everyone in suspense. Everyone was excited. Everyone in the crew held their breaths and looked at Olbai expectantly. Good news, super good news. Olbai laughed. Our old client, Guyu2, has signed a contract with 2 websites. They've agreed to promote this micro-movie on our homepage. Moreover, they've agreed to help us promote half a month in advance. Before Olbai could finish, the people below couldn't help but cheer. Why were they cheering? U2 was a mainstream video website in the country. It was ranked #1 in the industry in the field of original videos. To be able to receive such support from U2 meant a huge amount of views and popularity. In the age of the internet, views represented results. If one were to be more vulgar, it would mean bright red money. That's why our video team has to speed up. While ensuring the quality, we have to push out our micro-movie as soon as possible. Olbai smiled. This is a rare opportunity. As long as we can use this opportunity to make our name known, there will be more of such collaborations in the future. By then, don't mention U2, even Strange Love, and you sure will have to fight for a spot. All right. Under Calling Beast's lead, almost everyone applauded, including Kiki. She was purely there to join in the fun, and her face was red with excitement. The second thing, I'm very happy to announce that Mr. Yang, Poplar Fruit, and Ms. Zheng Yujia, who are sitting next to me, have jointly invested in our Wanha. They've brought an investment of up to 10 million. Olbai gestured to Poplar Fruit, and Zheng Yujia to stand up. I believe that all of you more or less know about this news. Olbai looked at everyone's unsurprised expression and smiled. But you probably don't understand what this means. I can tell you that we now have enough funds to accelerate the company's development. In addition to the unexpectedly mini-series that we've already planned before, we can immediately enter the preparation process. We still have enough funds to support 1 or 2 video projects this year. But even the cleverest housewife can't cook a meal without rice. Olbai clapped his hands and put on a yearning expression. It made people laugh. Up until now, we only have this little bit of plans. We have money, but we can't spend it. What do you guys say? Spend it for me. Xiaogu smiled mischievously. Okay, give me a good idea, and I'll give you the money right away. Old Bai snapped his fingers and pointed at little Go in the air. Xiaogu stuck out her tongue in embarrassment. Chapter 416. I'm not joking with you guys. Although Old Bai was smiling, his tone was very serious. Now, the delicious smell of meat was no longer enough to attract the attention of the crowd. Everyone was listening attentively. Old Bai was indeed much better at running the company than the beast. The art of his speech could even move the beast easily. Poplar Fruit saw this and was extremely impressed. He began to feel that he had profited from investing in this company. It had a first-class management team and system, as well as a first-class video team and talents. If such a new media company could not succeed, it would be unreasonable. Old Bai continued, I know that everyone joined Wanhe with the ambition of starting a business. In the past, Wanhe was still in the startup stage and lacked funds, staff, and equipment. But now it's different. Wanhe's platform has been built, and it's unprecedentedly broad. As long as you have the confidence, Wanhe will definitely give you a chance to take off. So, everyone, get up and use your wisdom. I believe that with such talent, your creativity must be limitless. Old Bai shouted excitedly, like an MLM lecturer. Zimo, Baiku, Supreme Jade, Zhang Binyu, and all of you. As long as you can come up with a great idea, we'll give you money. We'll give you money. We'll give you people. The entire company will serve you. In the thunderous applause, Poplar Fruit saw the fanaticism in the eyes of Zimo and the others. Even Xiaogu, who had been joking earlier, was very excited. She rolled up her sleeves and looked like she was ready to go all out. When the applause gradually subsided, Old Bai laughed and said, I'm sorry for talking for so long. Let's eat, let's eat. Everyone laughed and raised their chopsticks one after another. The celebratory banquet was immersed in a joyful atmosphere. Most of the main creative staff drank a lot, causing them to stand unsteadily in the big group photo. But who knew that this photo would become a precious old photo of a company that grew into a giant in the entertainment industry many years later? After the celebratory banquet ended, the others who were still sober were dismissed. For those who were drunk, Poplar Fruit booked a few rooms for them and had the waiters help them up. Zhang Yujie drank a few glasses, but she was far from drunk. Poplar Fruit took out his keys and prepared to drive her back. Wait a minute. Zhang Yujie took Poplar Fruit's hand and said, Let's go. Poplar Fruit looked at the energetic Kiki in his arms and hesitated for a moment before nodding. Behind the hotel was Beijing International Studies University. It was the site of Professor Luo, who had held a press conference with Poplar Fruit last year. At that time, Poplar Fruit was even accepted by Professor Luo as an exception. If it weren't for Poplar Fruit's rejection, he would have received an admission letter from outside the capital by now. Let's go in and take a walk, Zhang Yujie said generously. Poplar Fruit glanced at the banner at the entrance. It seemed like there was a graduation ceremony outside of Beijing. However, this didn't seem to have anything to do with him. Poplar Fruit smiled and walked in with Zhang Yujie. Outside of Beijing was divided into the East Campus and the West Campus. Poplar Fruit was walking in the East Campus, which was the main campus. Most of the teaching buildings and living areas were located here. Similarly, the green environment was very good. The trees provided shade. If it was autumn, the 2 rows of maple trees would be in full swing. It was a beautiful sight. Their gate is quite interesting. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I haven't seen a gate with 3 layers. It's a bit small. The gate is small and the campus is small. Zhang Yujie curled her lips and said. The 2 of them walked into other people's campus to play and pointed at other people's school gate. Fortunately, they didn't speak loudly, otherwise it would cause public outrage. Walking around the campus, Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie were in a leisurely mood that didn't fit in with the atmosphere of the graduation season. Poplar Fruit didn't say anything. The atmosphere was a bit gloomy. Only Kiki, who was in her father's arms, pointed here and there and called out curiously. Are you going back after the dubbing? Zhang Yujie suddenly asked. Yes. If there's nothing else, I'm going back to Yangcheng. Poplar Fruit nodded and replied. What are your plans when you go back? Zhang Yuji casually plucked a branch and peeled off the leaves one by one. I don't have any plans at the moment. I might give myself a vacation. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I've been working nonstop for more than a year. I want to put my work on hold and rest for a month. It was indeed time for a vacation. Although Poplar Fruit usually ran around, he still maintained at least 3 hours of translation time every day. Except for some special circumstances, Poplar Fruit didn't stop translating even during holidays. Moreover, if there was an urgent task, Poplar Fruit had to work all night. Now, Poplar Fruit had earned more than 3 million yuan for more than a year. But this money wasn't easy. If it weren't for Poplar Fruit's interest in this line of work, he would have been tired of it long ago. Even so, Poplar Fruit felt that he should take a break and give himself a vacation. He didn't need to translate anymore. He could think about other things he liked to do, such as traveling and so on. These ideas were still budding, and he hadn't completely decided yet. However, he had talked to Yao Dehua, and Yao Dehua was very supportive of his idea. He even wanted to take Poplar Fruit to go fishing on a yacht. If he took a vacation, it would be the remaining 1 month of the summer vacation. This was because starting from September in the second half of the year, Poplar Fruit would start to get busy again. Not to mention the school and Cinda. He had to fly to France at the beginning of September to prepare for this year's spring and summer 8-leaf fashion week with the old man Ardle. After that, there was a series of chores such as the book launch and so on. If he didn't take the time to enjoy his leisure time, he wouldn't be able to enjoy it. What a joke! Zhang Yujie lightly punched Poplar Fruit and complained, freelancing like you is the most relaxing. I don't even have many vacations in a year. Miss Zhang, if you want to take a vacation, you can take a vacation. Who can stop you? Poplar Fruit laughed. You can't say that. Am I such a foppish person? Zhang Yujie said discontentedly. I'm very serious about my work now. Okay? My dream is that one day I can become a big boss. Then, I won't have to rely on my family's judgment. Zhang Yujie nodded and said to herself, so, I have to seize the opportunity to learn from others in Dongxin. If there's a chance, I will come out and do it alone. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, okay, I'll invest for you when the time comes. Really? Zhang Yujie asked happily. Of course, it's because I'm rich. With money, I can do whatever I want. Poplar Fruit said jokingly. I'll take it seriously. Don't forget it in the future. Zhang Yujie walked forward with her head held high. Chapter 417. Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie were just thinking about Professor Luo Lin when they bumped into him. The first one to notice Professor Luo Lin was Zhang Yujie, who had been looking straight ahead. Poplar Fruit was distracted by Kiki's questions. Hey, Professor Luo. Zhang Yujie waved happily and ran to Professor Luo Lin's side. It really is you. I was wondering why your back looked so familiar. Poplar Fruit raised his head and saw Professor Luo Lin and 2 other people walking towards him. Because the trees blocked the street lights, Poplar Fruit couldn't see their faces clearly. He only saw that one of them was fat and the other was thin. It was a sharp contrast. You are. Professor Luo Lin initially thought that Zhang Yujie was the girl from his school, but after looking at her clothes, he knew that she wasn't a student. He adjusted his glasses and looked at her carefully, then smiled happily. You're Editor Zhang from Dongxin. Of course not. I'm Deputy Editor Zhang. Professor Luo, you can call me Little Zhang. Zhang Yujie smiled. Professor Luo, I didn't expect to see you here. Ha, Little Zhang, you're wrong. This is outside of Beijing. I should be the one saying that I didn't expect to see you here, right? Ha. Professor Luo Lin laughed. Hello, Professor Luo. Poplar Fruit walked over and greeted Professor Luo Lin with a smile. Oh, Little Yang, am I seeing things today? What coincidence. We're all acquaintances. Poplar Fruit had a deep impression of Professor Luo Lin. He recognized Poplar Fruit at a glance and became happier. Why are you all here? Oh, I understand. This old man understands too. Ha! Poplar Fruit hurriedly waved his hand to clarify. Hey, Professor Luo, what are you thinking? Yujie and I just happened to attend a dinner party. After we finished eating, we took a walk here. It's not what you think. It doesn't matter. Young people should get together often to cultivate feelings. Professor Luo Lin squinted his eyes and smiled. He had already felt that this golden couple was a perfect match at the press conference last year. He liked them as soon as he saw them. Is this Kiki? It's only been half a year, and you've already grown so big? Professor Luo Lin didn't wait for Poplar Fruit to refute and tease Kiki, who was as cute as a night elf in Poplar Fruit's arms. Old Luo, who are these two? At this time, the fatter person standing at the side asked curiously. Ah, look at me. I was so happy that I forgot all about it. Professor Luo Lin patted his head and introduced them. Principal Chi, this is Poplar Fruit. I've told you about him before. He's the leader of the new generation of translators, Poplar Fruit. This is the deputy editor of Dongxin Publishing, Zheng Yujie. She also became a deputy editor at such a young age. She has a bright future ahead of her. Oh, the Poplar Fruit that you wanted to recruit last year, but was snatched away by old Chun from Higashiyama University. Principal Chi immediately remembered. This was also Chun Zongdai's fault. When he came to Beijing for meetings, he would often show off his favorite disciple. Professor Luo, you flatter me. I'm not as good as you say. I still have to continue learning from you old seniors. Poplar Fruit said with a red face. Poplar Fruit, this is Principal Chi from our College of Advanced Studies. Because of your master, he has been thinking about you for a long time. Professor Luo Lin happily introduced. He didn't mind adding fuel to the fire by joking around. The fat Principal Chi wasn't so narrow-minded. He warmly shook hands with Poplar Fruit and smiled. It's okay. We still have to interact more with Higashiyama University. There will be more opportunities to learn from each other in the future. And this one, Professor Luo Lin patted the calm and quiet skinny man beside him and smiled. I don't think I need to be introduced, right? You can often see him on TV. Before Poplar Fruit could take a closer look, Zheng Yujie screamed. Yiling, it's really you, wasn't it? Poplar Fruit only realized at this moment. The seemingly weak and baby-faced man in front of him was the famous TV host Yiling. Hey, Yiling, hello, I'm also your fan. I grew up watching your show. Seeing his idol, Poplar Fruit was a little nervous. He shook Yiling's hand and said excitedly. In the end, he didn't forget to let Kiki greet Yiling. Kiki, hurry up and call Yiling uncle. Hello, uncle, Kiki said obediently. However, she wasn't interested. She turned her head and looked at the flickering street lamp that was covered by the swaying leaves. Hello, little sister. Yiling smiled. You're still calling me little sister? Professor Luo Lin was probably more familiar with Yiling. He joked. Her father grew up watching your show. Haha, it's all your fault. You exposed my age. Yiling casually patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and laughed. Professor Luo Lin, why is Yiling here? Zheng Yujie was excited, but didn't dare to get close. She pulled Professor Luo Lin and asked softly. However, Yiling heard it. He turned his head and smiled at Zheng Yujie. It's the graduation ceremony of my alma mater. The principal invited me back to the school to give a report to the graduates. Professor Luo Lin added, yes, today's the last one at our school. Zheng Yujie stuck her tongue out in embarrassment. However, she wasn't shy for too long. She rummaged through her bag and found a sticky note. She generously signed it, for Yiling Poplar Fruit was tempted. He also asked for one and had Yiling sign it. It's getting late. Professor Luo Lin saw Principal Chi raising his hand to look at his watch and smiled. Yiling has to return to Nanhu after giving a report. She also has a show tomorrow. Let's end our conversation here. Poplar Fruit, come over with your master next time. Let's have a chat. Yiling apologetically shook hands with Poplar Fruit and smiled. I'm really pressed for time. If there's a chance in the future, come over to Nanhu. I'll treat you guys to a tour of the station. It's fine. You're also working hard on the show. Poplar Fruit smiled as he sent them off. After Professor Luo and the others left, Zheng Yujie nudged Poplar Fruit with her shoulder and chuckled. How was it? What do you mean, how was it? Poplar Fruit asked despite knowing the answer. You won't regret coming for a walk with me, right? Zheng Yujie raised her head and proudly said, You're not happy that you can meet a superstar? I saw that you were pretty excited just now, too. I really couldn't tell that you're also someone who chases after stars. Poplar Fruit smiled. Why can't I chase after stars? Zheng Yujie unhappily asked. You're just the second generation of the rich and powerful. Aren't those stars that you can summon as you wish? Poplar Fruit shrugged. Who said that? Zheng Yujie was unconvinced. You can't generalize, okay? I'm a good person. Haha, I'm not teasing you. You've already given yourself a good person card. Poplar Fruit laughed. Chapter 4:18. The next afternoon, Poplar Fruit had nothing to do, so he took Kiki for a stroll to Wanhee. Then, he went to the company. The video was still in the middle of production. Several people in charge of editing and special effects were busy in a large office. Even old Kong, who had drunk the most yesterday, had rolled up his sleeves and was lying in front of the computer. Poplar Fruit took a look, then closed the door and came out. He smiled and pointed inside to Baiku and Yuan and said they were too engrossed. No one noticed me. Let's go. We won't disturb them. Because Yaosho and Zimo were directors, they were also inside directing the editing. Yuan and Baiku, who had no skills, were just practicing dubbing in the recording studio. Along the way, Poplar Fruit could see that many people were engrossed in their new work, including Xiaogo. She was wearing a cute blue dress and was holding a script and talking to herself. Mr. Yang, we won't accompany you. You're familiar with the place now. Why don't you walk around by yourself? Baika scratched his head and asked. Since Baiku announced the investment of Poplar Fruit yesterday, Baiku began to use the title Mr. Yang for Poplar Fruit. Don't call me Mr. Yang. Poplar Fruit corrected him. We are all friends. Look at me and Che. Don't we call each other by their names? Hee. Che and Juan touched his handsome aquiline nose and smiled. I think it's weird to call you Poplar Fruit. How about we call you Little Mr. Yang? Poplar Fruit said angrily. You have to call me boss. Have you forgotten? What did you say when you begged me to fight with you? I just want to make a joke with everyone. You pushed me into the pit and owed me a big meal. Che and Juan was depressed when he mentioned this matter. Okay, let's not talk about it. You're going back to practice, right? How about I go with you? Poplar Fruit laughed. I can't just sit here and watch you sweat, right? So, Poplar Fruit followed by Ku and the others to Wanhee's recording studio. Wanhee's recording studio was very professional. Poplar Fruit was not familiar with this area, but when he saw the pure wooden room inside and outside, the floor, ceiling, and the surrounding walls were covered with soundproofing materials, and the professional recording equipment that looked like an airplane's control panel, he was dazzled. How could he not worship it? When Beast and the others first started their business, a music company closed down due to poor management. Beast spent 500,000 yuan to buy this set of equipment. If it was brand new, it would cost at least 1,000,000 yuan. Baiku skillfully turned on the recording equipment and showed Poplar Fruit how to operate it. They really made a lot of money. Looking at the equipment that was still well-maintained, Poplar Fruit nodded. He carefully held on to Kiki to prevent her from running around. It would be bad if she broke some parts. Kiki and her father walked into this unfamiliar environment. She was a little curious because everything around her was new and unfamiliar, except for the few displays on the control panel. Kiki felt that she recognized those. Weren't they TV? However, we don't need all of them yet. I'm now turning on the recording equipment. We can listen to our dubbing later. Baika laughed. Because he had to study, Poplar Fruit stayed outside to watch. He sat in front of the control panel with his daughter in his arms. Through the vacuum, soundproof glass window, he could see the situation inside the recording room. After Baiku went in, he gestured to Poplar Fruit and said a few words, but the soundproof effect of the recording room was so good that no sound came out. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit could understand that Baiku wanted him to put on the headphones. With a smile and an okay gesture, Poplar Fruit put on the monitoring headphones. Immediately, the voices of Baiku and the others came out. The voices were very clear, and because the microphone was covered with a layer of blowout cover, the noise was almost inaudible. Papa, Kiki wants it too. When Kiki saw Poplar Fruit put on the strange hat, she curiously waved her small hands and pulled the cord of the headphones. Okay. Don't make trouble. Pop will put one on you too. Poplar Fruit helplessly picked up another monitoring headphone and put it on his daughter's ear upside down. For Kiki's little head, the headphones were too big. Poplar Fruit had to hold them for her. Otherwise, the weight of the headphones would be on Kiki's ears, which would be uncomfortable. While his heart was still on Kiki, Poplar Fruit found that the inside had already started. However, he didn't have time to listen carefully because Kiki felt that the headphones were big and stuffy. All she could hear were the voices of the two uncles. It was not interesting at all, so she shook her little head again, trying to get rid of the burden. Well, you don't want it. Poplar Fruit helplessly took it off for her, and then held down his daughter's little hand that was about to move around curiously. After Kiki was controlled, Poplar Fruit finally had some thoughts back to the headphones. Fortunately, it was not an official dubbing, so Poplar Fruit did not miss anything. Baiku's voice was quite unique. He was a broadcasting professional and had done animation dubbing. Poplar Fruit felt immersive listening to him. It was just that some parts were spoken very quickly, and there was no time to breathe. Chae-in-juin's voice was slightly worse, but it may be that he had been trying to figure out the role of Zhubeiji for a long time. Listening to his voice, Poplar Fruit felt that it was very cheap and annoying. After a while, Kiki was bored and twisted around on her father's thigh. She was a little impatient. Baiku and Chae-in-juin had also stopped. They had different opinions on the dubbing of a witty sentence in the script and were discussing it inside. Little Director Yang, what do you think of our opinions? At this time, Baiku raised his head and said to Poplar Fruit through the vacuum glass window. Under Chae-in-juin's suggestion, Poplar Fruit's title was officially confirmed. Poplar Fruit's repeated objections were to no avail, so he could only accept it. Poplar Fruit heard Baiku's question through the monitoring headphones. He was about to give his opinion, but after saying a few words, he realized that his voice did not reach inside at all. It doesn't make sense. I clearly said it to the microphone. Poplar Fruit tilted his head and looked at the thin and long microphone in front of him. Little Director Yang, you didn't press the red button, right? Yes, that's it. Only when you press it will sound out. Baiku leaned in front of the window and instructed. Hey. Poplar Fruit pressed the button and tested the sound. I heard it. Go ahead. Chae-in-juin laughed. My opinion is more amateur. I'm just casually talking about my feelings. Poplar Fruit laughed. He began to speak. However, halfway through his excited speech, there was suddenly a wave from inside. Chae-in-juin shouted, There's no sound again. Poplar Fruit looked down and saw that the little girl, Kiki, had reached out her small hand and pressed the red button. She turned her head and found that her little action was discovered by her father. She quickly shrank her neck and burrowed into her father's arms, laughing mischievously. Chapter 419. In the past, Poplar Fruit had always thought that dubbing was just about reading the script. What was so difficult about it? Moreover, they were dubbing their own characters. As long as they mouthed the right words, they would be able to complete the dubbing. However, when it was really his turn to practice in the recording studio, Poplar Fruit realized that it was not that simple. The difficult problems that he had imagined before, such as lip syncing and finding the feelings during acting, did not appear because the video had not been completed yet. There was no need for lip syncing. As for reading out the lines with great emotion, Poplar Fruit could do that after a while. However, they were all rejected by Baiku. Little Director Yang, this is not how our microfilm dubbing is done. Baiku took off his earmuffs and explained to Poplar Fruit. Our position is to have a fast pace, just like Japanese. We give people a lot of information in a short period of time. If you read out a sentence slowly, it will make people feel strange. Poplar Fruit was a little confused. He was not like Baiku. The main actors and the crew all knew the style of calling beasts. When the time came, the film would definitely be in line with the saying, concentration is the essence. If he spoke slowly, the scene would flash to the next person, and there would be no time at all. Let me give you a demonstration. Baiku picked up his script and said, I'll talk about my own monologue. It's a more classic one. My name is Wang Dachui. Baiku read quickly. I never thought that I would find a job in the end. He said every sentence very quickly, but his pronunciation was clear and there was no delay. Then, he deliberately emphasized the word found to show a sense of impact. Even so, his tongue was still vibrating at a very high frequency. As for Baiku's plain-looking and expressionless confession, if one listened carefully, there seemed to be a lot of charm that could be dug out. Yang played it repeatedly. Every time she listened to it, she had a different feeling. This could be said to be an important factor in the popularity of the microfilm and the subsequent miniseries. People did not get tired of watching it over and over again. However, even though Poplar Fruit had listened to Baiku's analysis and teachings, he still couldn't reach Baiku's level. This made Poplar Fruit feel a little depressed. What about the others? Other than Che and Juan, many of the main actors also came to the recording studio to practice when they were free. Poplar Fruit noticed that other than Baiku, Zhang Binyu was also very good at dubbing. When he faced the microphone, he was like a completely different person. His style of speaking and even his voice were completely different from his own. Che and Juan's voice acting was considered one of the worst in the crew, but he was still much better than Poplar Fruit. It's okay. When the video comes out, you'll know how to read it. When the time comes, you can follow the video and finish reading the dialogue. Then, you can add a little bit of emotion into it. That will be enough. Baiku comforted Poplar Fruit. Baiku knew that he couldn't expect too much from Poplar Fruit. After all, there were specializations in the industry. Poplar Fruit wasn't in this line of work. The cameo was purely for fun. It was good enough if he could reach an average level. When he went back at night, Poplar Fruit was still figuring it out. Even though Baiku said that it was okay, Poplar Fruit was still a little unconvinced. He was also a person who didn't want to admit defeat. He felt that if Che and Juan could do it well, why couldn't he? Of course, Poplar Fruit had another thing to do at night, and that was to coax Kiki, who had been bored the whole afternoon and was throwing a tantrum. In a recording studio, Poplar Fruit was busy practicing and studying. He had no time to play with Kiki. The equipment in the recording studio was very delicate. Poplar Fruit was worried that Kiki would run around and break the equipment, so he always held Kiki in his arms. Kiki was different from children of the same age. She grew up faster. Now she could run around like a 2- or 3-year-old child. Moreover, she was in the most curious period of a child. She wanted to get to the bottom of everything. When she saw the microphone, she would ask, "Papa, why doesn't this microphone sound?" In her memory, when she used to sing with Bebe by the river, her voice would become louder when she spoke in a microphone. When she saw the vacuum glass window outside, she would ask, "Papa, why are Uncle and the others in the TV?" She still felt that the glass window was from the TV. Unfortunately, her father didn't show her the pleasant goat. In the end, Kiki was really bored, so she started to make trouble. She kept holding her father's neck and scratching his face, trying to break free and walk on the ground by herself. If Xiaoge hadn't come later, and she hadn't helped to take care of him for a while, Poplar Fruit would have been so tormented by her that he couldn't even aim the microphone properly. Tomorrow, he would definitely go to the recording studio to play. If Kiki was still unwilling, it would be difficult for Poplar Fruit to practice, not to mention that he would have to cooperate with the crew in the future. That's right. Poplar Fruit patted his head and thought of an idea. Isn't there a microphone there? He could let Kiki sing. Poplar Fruit smiled. For Kiki, singing was an irresistible temptation. What should he do? Poplar Fruit scratched his head. It didn't seem to be easy to implement. This was because if Kiki sang at the side, she would also affect Poplar Fruit and the crew. Why don't I just get a computer and let Chi-Chi sit outside and watch cartoons? When Poplar Fruit was doing his dubbing inside, she could still see him through the glass window. This was a good idea. However, Poplar Fruit felt a little guilty, because Poplar Fruit usually strictly limited Kiki's time to watch TV. Now, for his own convenience, he let Kiki watch TV freely. This was not very appropriate. Or we can combine it. Poplar Fruit's brain was still quite flexible. He thought of another alternative. When he went inside to practice his dubbing, he would let Kiki watch cartoons outside. He would try to shorten the practice time as much as possible. Anyway, he didn't have many lines, and most of the time, he spoke in other languages. As long as he mastered the technique, he would be able to draw inferences. After he came out, he would be able to take care of Kiki. At that time, they could go to the quiet room next door to sing. They just needed to bring a microphone over. There was definitely no shortage of microphones. The more Poplar Fruit thought about it, the more excited he became. He even thought of a recording studio. What was a recording studio for? That was a place to record songs. Only film companies would use it for dubbing. Why not take this opportunity to let Kiki record 2 songs? Poplar Fruit counted the songs that Kiki sang well. There were quite a lot. He would pick 2 of her best songs and record them for Fong Bei. Poplar Fruit thought of Fong Bei, who was far away in Yangcheng. Although she didn't say it, she still liked Kiki very much. If she could hear Kiki's songs, she would be very happy. Poplar Fruit had already changed the title of the song. It would be called Only Bei is Good in the World. Chapter 420. Papa. Kiki's pleasant voice, like an oriole flying out of a valley, came out of the headset without any impurities. Yes, Poplar Fruit's happy response came out of the headset. The sun came out and the moon came out. Are you home? Kiki sang this string with a little effort, but she still managed to sing it. Even so, her recitation-like singing was still very pleasant. Yes, Poplar Fruit answered heartily. The stars came out. Where did the sun go? Kiki continued to sing. She was very good at the rhythm, and there was no sign of her being out of tune. In the sky, Poplar Fruit answered with a smile. I can't find him no matter how hard I try. Kiki sang better and better, and the feeling of difficulty gradually disappeared. He went home. Poplar Fruit's tongue turned. The sun, the stars, and the moon are the auspicious family. In this line of singing together, Kiki's childish voice and Poplar Fruit's mature and magnetic voice formed a sharp contrast. Kiki's voice was not covered by Poplar Fruit's voice. At this time, there were many people standing in the control room outside the recording studio. Yaosho and Xiaoge, who had heard the news, came over. There were also many others who came to watch the fun. There were only 3 professional earplugs for monitoring, but there were many excuses for diversion. They even brought their own earplugs to plug into the computer. It had been 3 days since Poplar Fruit entered the recording studio for the first time. The production of the video was coming to an end. Poplar Fruit and the other actors in the crew also had a big breakthrough in the dubbing practice. As for Kiki, she was fascinated by the magical microphone. At first, it was just an ordinary microphone, but the technical and recording engineer, Ashue, gave her a small software on the computer, and Kiki could hear her own singing voice. When they were free, Poplar Fruit took Kiki to record 2 songs in the recording studio. One was Kiki's best song, and the other was Bei is Only Good in the World, which was rewritten by Poplar Fruit. At that time, when Kiki sang Bei is Only Good in the World, Kiki and her father were playing happily in the recording studio, but the people outside all had a strange expression. Before, in everyone's mind, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie were obviously a couple. Not only were they often in and out of people's sight, but they were also investing together. And the way Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit was not pure at all, okay? Even the way Poplar Fruit looked at Zheng Yujie made everyone think that he was trying to hide something. But now, everyone heard correctly. Kiki sang Bei is Only Good in the World. The pronunciation of the name Beijing and Yujie were very different. There was no mistaking it. This name should be a girl's name, and the song was originally to praise her mother. If this girl's name was used, no one would believe that this name belonged to my daughter, who was the same age as Kiki. Using this song to sing about my daughter of the same age, wasn't this nonsense? At that time, Baiku and Xiaoge looked at Che and Jun together. Che and Jun scratched his head and said, "Why are you looking at me?" I don't know. He really didn't know. For the 2 girls around Poplar Fruit that he had secretly taken photos of before, he only knew the name Duan Xueching. Who knew if this Bei was Poplar Fruit's girlfriend? Che and Jun had long recognized Poplar Fruit's romantic in his heart. Wasn't this a romantic youth? Che and Jun didn't think there was any problem. As for President Yang's emotional problems, outsiders like them had no right to speak, and it was not good to discuss too much. They just turned a blind eye. After recording the song, Poplar Fruit directly copied it into the computer and sent it to Fong Bei. Just as he was snickering, Fong Bei didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she listened to the song. She was a little touched, but she still couldn't help but send him a throwing chair emoji. She said indignantly, "Humph, I won't be captured so easily by you." Thus, Poplar Fruit saw Fong Bei type 3 lines of words. You're not like Bebe's life. You're the one who's gone. Weird uncle. After reading these 3 lines, Poplar Fruit also found that Fong Bebe had decisively gone offline. The science genius also changed her status. I said 2 months, so it's 2 months. I'm determined not to be disturbed. Well, Poplar Fruit angrily closed the computer. Later, Poplar Fruit suddenly had an idea. Why not sing a song with Kiki? Although he didn't sing well, wasn't there a legend in the entertainment industry about recording studio singers? In the recording studio, he could sing repeatedly until he was not out of tune. Coupled with the post-production of the tuner, people who didn't know how to sing could sing to the standard of a master. Poplar Fruit's idea wasn't considered cheating. He just wanted to leave a precious memory with Kiki. Anyway, the song he sang with Kiki would at most be posted on Weibo. It wasn't like he would use it to cheat money. Thus, under Poplar Fruit's careful selection, there was the auspicious 3 treasures that he sang with Kiki. This song became popular as early as a few years ago during the Spring Festival Gala. It was still sung in many people's mobile phone ringtones. However, there was a problem. There were 2 of them. First of all, the auspicious 3 treasures sang about parents and daughters. Poplar Fruit only had him and Kiki. Where did the mother come from? He couldn't possibly find Jing Yujia or a girl who could sing to fool them, right? If Fong Bebe saw it, how upset would she be? It was still the same old method. Poplar Fruit finally changed the lyrics and changed all the parts about the mother to the father. There was another problem. The auspicious 3 treasures part was in Mongolian. He and Kiki didn't know Mongolian. Did they have to cut out the beginning and end? If it were anyone else, they would probably give up just like that. But who was Poplar Fruit? He was a master of languages. So what if they didn't know Mongolian? They could learn it now. What about Kiki? It didn't matter. They could learn it. Although it was impossible for Poplar Fruit to learn the entire Mongolian language in 1 or 2 days, Poplar Fruit could learn the basic pronunciation. Then, through his teaching, Kiki could also learn to sing the lyrics, as long as the sound was similar. There were still some difficulties and twists. Poplar Fruit and Kiki practiced many times after they went back to the hotel. However, this learning speed was still very monstrous. For Kiki, who was less than 1.5 years old, her monstrous level was more powerful than Poplar Fruit. After singing a few times and entering the recording studio, Poplar Fruit felt that he was in a good state. His lyrics were only a few words, so he didn't have to worry too much about being out of tune. In addition, his voice was originally good. The people outside heard it through the earphones and praised him nonstop. And of course, they were praising Kiki. Shanair, take a picture. Did you take a picture? Calling Show took a break from the busy work and even directed his exclusive cameraman to take a picture of Poplar Fruit. He was going to make a music video for Poplar Fruit. Although it couldn't be released on the market because of the copyright, didn't Poplar Fruit want to play? You might as well play a big one. Chapter 421. The production of the auspicious 3 Treasures MV was very simple. It just needed to be edited a little, add some dazzling lights and cutscenes, and then match with the already recorded music track. After it was done, Yaosho copied the video to Poplar Fruit. That night, Poplar Fruit was especially solemn. He took a bath and changed clothes, then climbed in a bed with his freshly washed daughter to watch the video. Kiki was hugged in her father's arms, her wet hair sticking to her father's waist. She was still too young, so Poplar Fruit put a pillow under her, but otherwise, she would sink into the quilt. Kiki looked at the computer screen expectantly. She still didn't know what to watch, but as long as she watched the TV, something interesting would definitely jump out. She opened the video. It was like the MVs of celebrities nowadays. It was a nice prelude. Poplar Fruit hugged Kiki and entered the scene. Under the editing, the scene in front didn't drag too much, as if it was fast-forwarded. Kiki soon sat down on the BB high chair. The subtitles showed the auspicious 3 treasures and the names of the singers, Poplar Fruit and Yang Luachi. Of course, Kiki didn't recognize them. She just strangely saw herself on the TV. Kiki happily pulled her father's finger, her little but twisting as she pointed at the computer screen. I know you're in there. Keep watching, it's time to sing. Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's hair. helping her to tidy up her wet and tangled hair. Not long after, Chi-Chi's slightly excited and light singing voice came from the computer speakers. Kiki's voice was very nice, but Poplar Fruit found that the voice he heard in the MV was more mellow and sweet than Kiki's voice when he heard her sing live. The role of the tuner was displayed here. Hearing her own voice, Kiki's mouth opened into a cute O shape. She finally understood that she was the one singing. "Ing," Kiki shyly called out, her two little hands covering her eyes. He didn't know if she was embarrassed because her singing wasn't that nice, or if she was just trying to cover her ears and steal a bell. Poplar Fruit felt a bump in his stomach. He took a look and found that Kiki had squeezed into his arms. Originally, Poplar Fruit was worried that his daughter would be too shy and unhappy, but he saw that Kiki's two little hands covering her face. Poplar Fruit saw Kiki's big eyes, blinking as she stared at the computer screen. Poplar Fruit, his hand pressed the space key, pausing the video. Although she didn't see Poplar Fruit's actions clearly and didn't understand how the video was paused, Kiki could guess that it must have been her father, the big bad guy, who did it. She stopped pretending and let go of her hands, hugging her father's right hand and moaning. "Huh." Poplar Fruit laughed proudly and restarted the video with his other hand. The video was only a few minutes long. After watching it, Kiki reluctantly hugged the computer and watched it a few more times until her father urged her to go to bed. Poplar Fruit uploaded the MV to a video website that night and then posted it on Weibo. He also proudly posted a few photos of him and Kiki playing in Beijing. Of course, on Weibo, he didn't forget to thank and Beast and the others. The photos were seriously inconsistent with the video, but the Weibo post instantly ignited everyone's enthusiasm. Poplar Fruit closed Weibo and pondered over his translation experience. In just 2 hours, Poplar Fruit turned around and found that the Weibo post had been forwarded more than 50,000 times, and the number of his Weibo fans had increased by more than 20,000. Looking at this number, it was still rising. Beast and the others' reposts had a big effect, but the father-daughter pair's warm duet made many people envious. Just look at the envious, jealous, and hateful comments on Poplar Fruit's Weibo. There were still many questions in the comments, and to summarize, there were 2 more popular questions. The first one asked if Poplar Fruit was going to bring his daughter into the entertainment industry. The second one asked about Kiki's various information, such as her birth date and horoscope. There was also a guy with no integrity who asked Poplar Fruit's criteria for choosing a son-in-law. It seemed like Kiki's cuteness had already broken through the age barrier and captured the hearts of many strange uncles from all angles. Poplar Fruit felt that it was fun, so he posted a reply to everyone's comments. "Haha, I didn't expect everyone to be so enthusiastic." As for the questions in the comments, here are the answers. Firstly, I came to Beijing this time because of some investment reasons, and I made a guest appearance in Beast's micro-movie unexpectedly. This micro-movie is very funny and awesome, so please look forward to it. As for Kiki and I, we have never planned to enter the entertainment industry. Secondly, for those who have designs on Kiki, Poplar Fruit is already sharpening his knife, so don't even think about escaping. This Weibo post was half joking and half serious. If anyone really had designs on them, Poplar Fruit would definitely send them flying with a punch. A daughter was the apple of a father's eye and the apple of Poplar Fruit's eye. Seeing her grow up day by day, how could Poplar Fruit bear to let Kiki marry off? When Poplar Fruit's Weibo post was sent out, the fans who received a reply were all excited. They became happier and even shouted in the comment section, "Father-in-law, post the address. Even if I die, I want to die at Kiki's feet." The flood of comments made Poplar Fruit break out in a cold sweat. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and decided to ignore this bunch of immoral people and go to sleep. Poplar Fruit didn't know that Poplar Fruit's video and Weibo post had become the hottest topic on Weibo the next day. At the same time that he and Kiki became popular online, Beast's micro-movie also gained a certain amount of popularity. Coincidentally, Poplar Fruit gave, unexpectedly, a free promotion. This was all for later. When Poplar Fruit returned to Wanha the next day, the video was already done. Poplar Fruit didn't have many scenes, and he had to stay in Beijing for almost half a month because of this matter. Beast felt a little apologetic and arranged for Poplar Fruit's dubbing to start first. Baiku and Poplar Fruit were dubbing together at the beginning. Although they had rehearsed many times before, Poplar Fruit still felt a lot of pressure when dubbing together with Baiku. The contrast was too obvious. Fortunately, Baiku was right. With the video, the rhythm of dubbing was easier to grasp. After failing more than 10 times, Poplar Fruit finally got the hang of it. Once there was a first, there would be a second. After Poplar Fruit got into the zone, his dubbing efficiency increased. In the end, Poplar Fruit used less than half a day to complete a total of 27 lines. Poplar Fruit knew that this high efficiency wasn't because of his talent, but because of his continuous practice and understanding over the past few days. No matter what, Poplar Fruit was done with unexpectedly. The rest, including the release of the video, didn't have anything to do with Poplar Fruit. Professional matters should be left to the professionals. After staying in Beijing for so long, Poplar Fruit was finally going to return to Yangcheng. Chapter 422. As soon as he got off the plane, Poplar Fruit turned on his phone and found that his phone was full of missed calls. He opened it and saw that they were all from Fat Dragon. What's wrong with this guy? Poplar Fruit frowned. Why did he call me so many times? Fat Dragon, this guy. Do you guys remember him? Usually, he was an otaku. Even though he owned a software company, the company was set up in his house, and a few like-minded people all lived in the same courtyard. According to his temper, even if the sky fell, he would not take the initiative to call Poplar Fruit. He was acting so strangely this time. Could there be something wrong with him? He carried Kiki onto the big suitcase and told her to hold on to the handle. Then, Poplar Fruit pushed her out of the airport. Let's take the car. Even though she was facing the back and walking backwards, Kiki was still very excited. She held on to the handle with one hand and waved the other hand. Poplar Fruit pressed on the phone while paying attention to Kiki's movements, afraid that she would accidentally fall. After the call connected, Poplar Fruit held the phone between his shoulder and ear. His free hand could press on Kiki's back to prevent her from falling. Hey, Fruit, why didn't you turn on your phone? Fat Dragon asked casually. Did you sleep the whole day? Bullshit. Poplar Fruit laughed. Do you think I'm as sleepy as you? I just got off the plane, and the plane doesn't allow me to turn on my phone, so I turn it off. What's the emergency? You called more than 20 times. Where are you flying to? Fat Dragon did not answer directly and asked in surprise. We didn't go anywhere. Poplar Fruit laughed. I just flew back to Guangzhou from Beijing. But don't think about gifts. I didn't buy anything this time. You want to play with your daughter, didn't you? Fat Dragon pursed his lips and said, What a coincidence. I was just about to look for you when you came back from the capital. It would be convenient if you were still there. You're also in the capital? Poplar Fruit stopped in surprise and asked, Why are you looking for me? Do you want me to go back? No, I'm still at home. A friend from Beijing wants to look for you. You don't have to go back. I'll get him to fly over here to find you. I have to go to Yangcheng as well, Fat Dragon said with a smile. By the way, you won't be going anywhere for the next 2 days, right? Don't go missing when I look for you. I didn't go anywhere. They're all in the apartment. I'll send you the address later, Poplar Fruit said. But by the way, why are you looking for me? I can't explain it clearly over the phone. Let's talk about it when the time comes. I have your address. Cousin gave it to me before, but I don't think I've been there yet. Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. I have a friend here looking for me, Fat Dragon said and hung up the phone. He was the kind of person who didn't like to drag things out. Even if he made a phone call, he would be annoyed if he talked for a few hours. So after talking for a few minutes, Fat Dragon was already impatient. Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he took the phone off his shoulder and put it in his pocket. He still didn't understand why Fat Dragon was looking for him. He only told him the information of a friend from Beijing and nothing else. I'm speechless. Poplar Fruit shook his head and continued to push Kiki, who was already making a fuss when the car stopped outside the airport. Today was a work day. Because Poplar Fruit went to Beijing and commandeered Poplar Fruit's Land Rover, Song Jiwen had to go to work. This meant that Poplar Fruit and Kiki could only take a taxi back. It was fine to take a taxi, but there weren't many cars. Poplar Fruit made a phone call a little late, and the taxis outside had all left. After waiting for a while, Poplar Fruit took out his phone and prepared to call a taxi driver that he often called to pick him up. Fortunately, there was a taxi that came late to Shan Shan. "We're back." Poplar Fruit hugged Kiki's stomach with one hand and hugged her to his chest. With the other hand, he carried the big suitcase up the stairs. The familiar apartment building and the familiar elevator felt really good. When he walked to the door of his house, Poplar Fruit could hear the sound of claws scratching the door in Song Jiwon's house. There was no need to guess. It must be Goldie, the little guy who heard that Kiki was back and wanted to rush out to see her. Kiki didn't know it was Goldie. She walked over curiously and tilted her head to look at it, a little scared and a little curious. Woof woof. Poplar Fruit was still opening the door when Goldie's bark suddenly came out, startling Kiki. However, Kiki also quickly recognized it. She ran over, grabbed Poplar Fruit's trousers, raised her head, and asked, "Papa, Goldie, Goldie." Poplar Fruit squatted down with a smile and picked up Kiki. He said, "Papa knows. I'm going to open the door and get the key." Before they had time to drag the suitcase into the house, Poplar Fruit went in first and took Song Jiwon's spare key. He went back to the corridor and opened the door of Song Jiwon's house. As soon as he opened the door, a golden fluffy shadow rushed out and happily circled around Poplar Fruit's feet. Then it sniffed up and down and couldn't help but pull Poplar Fruit's trousers and stand up. Poplar Fruit put down Kiki, who was happily struggling in his arms, and then pressed Goldie down and said with a smile, "Come on, let Papa see how you have been with Uncle Mosquito for more than half a month. Well, you've grown a lot. However, you've also gained a lot of weight. You must not exercise." Poplar Fruit patted Goldie's back gently. Goldie kept struggling, and Kiki also ran over to pull Poplar Fruit's hand. Poplar Fruit laughed and let go of Goldie to be intimate with Kiki. Goldie had grown a lot. Its size and weight were nearly twice as big as Kiki's. Being bumped by Goldie, Kiki couldn't stand and fell to the ground. Poplar Fruit was shocked and quickly bent down to check. However, when he saw that Kiki didn't feel much pain and kept laughing, Poplar Fruit was relieved. This reckless guy still had some sense of propriety. After closing Song Jiwon's door, Poplar Fruit carried the suitcase and took the two little guys home. As he packed, he scolded Goldie. "You and your Uncle Mosquito must have eaten a lot of junk food and didn't exercise. Look at how fat you are. Be careful, you won't be able to walk in the future. From tomorrow onwards, you and Kiki have to exercise with Papa. Do you understand?" Poplar Fruit carried a stack of clothes and put them down in the bedroom. Behind him was still the bell-like laughter and Goldie's low growls. Everything he said was in vain. No one listened to him. When he came out, he found that Goldie had already jumped onto the back of the sofa, and Kiki was still struggling to climb onto the sofa. Poplar Fruit looked at them for a while with his hands on his waist. He shook his head and ignored the two little guys who had already gone crazy from playing. He had just come back and had a lot of things to deal with. How could he have the time to care so much? Chapter 423. In the evening, Poplar Fruit practiced 3 hours of Thai and Hindi translation. Then he laid on his bed and began to plan his vacation. When he was walking with Zheng Yujie in Beijing, Yangwu wasn't just casually talking about it. He wanted to free up more than a month for a vacation. Otherwise, his life would be completely immersed in work and learning. What fun would there be to speak of? Where to go during his vacation was also a problem. It was like a white-collar worker in an office building worrying about what to eat for lunch. It was not that there was nothing to eat, but that there were too many choices. There were so many fun places to go. It seemed that with money and time, all of these could become his choices. But where should he go? Right? Didn't Big Brother Yao Dehua suggest that he go fishing with him? Although fishing was not fun, going out to sea on a yacht and feeling the blue sea and blue sky was a very enjoyable thing. He could also go to Nanhai Island. It had the most beautiful beach in the country and all kinds of tropical scenery. Poplar Fruit had been there once when he was young, and he still yearned for it. He could consider it. Poplar Fruit closed his eyes and smiled slightly. In his imagination, the waves on the beach gently hit the reef. That slow and rhythmic sound accompanied Poplar Fruit to sleep. The next day, Song Ji-won pushed open the door and came in. He picked up his breakfast from the dining table and threw the car key into Poplar Fruit's arms. Here, I'll return the car to you. I'm going to work. Don't you need to drive? I'm waiting for someone today. I won't go out. Poplar Fruit was drinking milk with Kiki. When he raised his head to take the key, Kiki, who was drinking milk from a small wooden bowl, also raised her head because of Uncle Mosquito's action. Both father and daughter had a white mustache on their lips. It was really like father like daughter. Why would he drive your car to work? The Land Rover is even more high-end than our leaders. Isn't it courting death if we drive there? Song Ji-won rolled his eyes and said. After Song Ji-won left, Poplar Fruit had nothing to do. He was a person who couldn't stay idle. Originally, he didn't want to do anything and take a break. However, when he saw the sun shining so brightly, he couldn't help but take a book to the balcony and sit down to read. Kiki, on the other hand, pulled out a small wooden box and flipped through the toys that Poplar Fruit had painstakingly organized yesterday. She took out the new toys that she had brought back from the capital and showed them to Jean Z. Goldie squeezed next to her and lay on its stomach. It stuck out its tongue and wagged its tail. She didn't know if it understood Kiki's words. It was said that Fat Dragon would only arrive in the evening, so Poplar Fruit still had a whole day to waste. He suddenly remembered that the summary of his translation experience had been completed. It wasn't a lot, only about 100,000 words. It wasn't even enough to publish a book. Should he send it to Yao Dahua and let the Xinda Translation Research Institute ponder over it? He planned to use this material to teach a few classes after the Xinda Translation Training course started. However, I have integrated a lot of my understanding and thinking of various translation theories into this book. I wonder if it will be too profound for most people to understand. Speaking of translation theory, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that this material should be shown to his supervisor. After all, it was a summary of the stages. There's also a theory that he had boldly proposed. If director Chun Zongdai knew that he had taught an immature theory to someone else without letting him read it, he might be so angry that he would pick up a broom and chase after him. Therefore, Poplar Fruit turned on his computer and attached his manuscript to an email and sent it to Chun Zongdai. After that, he made a phone call and said, "Director, I recently wrote something. I want you to help me review it." "What is it?" The director seemed to be eating something. He wriggled his mouth and asked vaguely, "Is it a thesis? I don't think I assigned you a thesis, right?" "All right, I forgot to assign you a thesis." Poplar Fruit was sweating. He didn't expect that a phone call would almost drag him into a trap. He scratched his head and said, "Director, it's the holidays now. Let's talk about the thesis next semester. I wrote that article myself. It's just a summary. You could just read it as a thought report." "I'm just kidding. Look at how scared you are. With your level, writing a thesis is a piece of cake," Chun Zongdai laughed. Poplar Fruit also heard his wife complaining next to him, "Don't laugh while eating. Be careful not to choke." "Okay, I'll stop talking. I'll read it when I have time. Let's eat, let's eat." Chun Zongdai's voice came from the phone before he hung up. Yongwood didn't continue listening. He pressed a button on his phone and put it down in a state of shock. Chun Zongdai was actually right. With Poplar Fruit's current level, a thesis was no longer a problem for him. Poplar Fruit held Chun Zongdai's book list and didn't know how many books and theses on translation theory he had read. However, anyone who had experienced the pain of writing theses in the last year of university would not have a good impression of writing theses. Even Poplar Fruit was the same. He still remembered the painful experience of reading a few big books and revising countless times when he was writing theses. Without the scary task of writing theses, this was still good. Poplar Fruit breathed a sigh of relief. At least his holiday could go on happily. That was not bad. The quiet and peaceful days were still very comfortable. Cooking, drying sheets, and the sun was just right. In this fast-paced metropolis, Yonghua has a car and a house. Renting a house is fine. He has money anyway, so he can buy it if he wants. He also has a daughter and a dog. The only thing he lacks is a female owner. Fong Beibei's face appeared in Poplar Fruit's mind. It was as if they were back in their teacher's apartment. In that small apartment, Fong Bei, with her sleeves rolled up and wearing an apron, was squeezed in the small kitchen with Poplar Fruit. The two of them inadvertently looked at each other, and sparks seemed to fly. Speaking of which, after Poplar Fruit returned to Yangcheng, his longing for Fong Bei grew rapidly. Is this love? Poplar Fruit still didn't quite understand. What was the difference between wanting a woman to be your wife and your daughter's mother and loving a woman? Is there really a difference? He also didn't understand why Fong Bei would care about these things. However, Poplar Fruit was already regretting it a little. What he regretted was that he had been so foolish in the rain. When faced with this kind of question, he should have just told her the answer she wanted to hear. Now that Fong Bei is hiding, she won't let you see her. You have 2 months to regret it. Half a month has already passed. There's still 1.5 months left. Poplar Fruit held his head and sighed. Chapter 424. When it was almost 5 o'clock, Poplar Fruit finally received a call from Fat Dragon. "Hello, Fruit. I picked up my friend." Fat Dragon's phone was very noisy. He was probably on the street. "Do you have any restaurant recommendations? My friend wants to treat you to a meal." Poplar Fruit laughed. "There's no need to spend so much money, right? He came all the way from Beijing. There's a need. He still has a favor to ask of you. Just say it. He's also a big boss." Fat Dragon laughed and said, "A favor to ask of me? I'm just a scholar. What do I have that's worth your attention?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "If that's the case, then let's go to Yuwang Palace. The Cantonese food there is more authentic. It seems like he won't be eating at home today." Poplar Fruit put the dishes back into the fridge. After changing his clothes, Poplar Fruit brought Kiki out and drove to Yuwang Palace restaurant. When they were leaving, Kiki pestered Poplar Fruit to bring Gold along. Seeing Kiki and Gold looking at him with their watery eyes, Poplar Fruit's heart almost softened. He finally patted Kiki's little head and said, "It's not good to bring Gold to eat this time. Next time, okay? The next time Daddy takes you out to play, I'll definitely bring Gold along." After much persuasion, Kiki reluctantly nodded. Actually, Poplar Fruit wasn't being perfunctory with Kiki. If there was a chance to bring Gold on a vacation, Poplar Fruit definitely wouldn't leave it at home. If he left it to Song Jiwen, it would become a little fat dog in the blink of an eye. When they arrived at Yuwang Palace, Poplar Fruit saw Fat Dragon standing at the door with a balding middle-aged man beside him. Fat Dragon's friend? Looks like he's quite old. How did he make such a big friend? Aren't his friends all tech nerds? With a stomach full of questions, Poplar Fruit got out of the car with Kiki in his arms. Although Kiki wanted to get out and walk by herself, there was a lot of traffic outside the restaurant. Poplar Fruit was worried. "Fat Dragon, why are you waiting outside? I have the private room number. Can I just go and find you?" Yangwo walked over with a smile and punched Fat Dragon's shoulder as she spoke. "Hey, Guogua, you're here." Fat Dragon turned his head and smiled. He pulled Poplar Fruit and introduced him to his friend. "Uncle Hu, this is the Poplar Fruit I told you about. He's the original designer of Blizzard's new game." Poplar Fruit didn't know why Fat Dragon mentioned this. Very few people knew about this. Other than Poplar Fruit's close friends, he only mentioned it to a few family members. Of course, this included Fat Dragon. They had been friends for more than 10 years, and because of Poplar Fruit's brother-in-law, they were considered relatives. Poplar Fruit said humbly, No, it's just one of the reasons." Fat Dragon continued to introduce. "Uncle Hu's name is Three Tigers Xing. Fruit, you might not have heard of his real name, but you definitely have heard of his pen name. You can't say it. Can't say it? Why can't I say it?" Poplar Fruit was a little confused by Fat Dragon's last 3 words. However, memories from many years ago struck Poplar Fruit like a bolt of lightning, and he immediately reacted. "Can't say it. Master can't say it." Poplar Fruit opened his eyes and said happily, "You mean Master can't say it?" Poplar Fruit, "Hello. Nice to meet you." Three Tigers Xing reached out his hand and shook Poplar Fruit's hand. He asked curiously, "You still remember my pen name?" Three Tigers Xing didn't use the word no, but remember, because this pen name used to be quite famous. However, it had been almost 5 years since he last used it. "Of course I remember. Back then, I followed your mercenary world." Poplar Fruit laughed. "I still remember that when I graduated from junior high school, I didn't have much money. I couldn't find any books in the rental bookstore, so I went to Fat Dragon's place and used his computer to read. At that time, I didn't know what was wrong with Fat Dragon, but the chapters on his computer were more than what you posted online. If it wasn't for Fat Dragon's terrible writing skills, I would have thought that it was Fat Dragon who wrote it. Ah ha ha ha. Fat Dragon laughed dryly. He almost jumped up and covered Poplar Fruit's mouth. He really touched his sore spot. This was Fat Dragon's dark history. Three Tigers Xing couldn't help but laugh. Then you should know what's going on now, right? Poplar Fruit laughed and looked at Fat Dragon. Fat Dragon waved his hand and said, "Sigh, you exposed me again. It's okay. Uncle Who knows about this too." At that time, I was reading online and thought that Uncle Who was updating too slowly, so I hacked into Uncle Who's computer and copied all the chapters. Luckily, you didn't leak it out. Otherwise, I would have suffered a huge loss. Three Tigers Xing laughed. Speaking of which, Poplar Fruit, the rental bookstore you mentioned, is also a pirated book. It's not as good as the ones you and Fat Dragon read. At least, it's barely considered authentic. It wasn't convenient to talk outside, so Three Tigers Xing invited Poplar Fruit into the private room. After sitting down, Poplar Fruit asked curiously, "Right, Fat Dragon, how did you and Uncle Who meet?" "We didn't know each other until we fought." Third Tiger Xing answered for Fat Dragon. He smiled and said, "One day when I came back from work, I was sitting in front of the computer writing. Suddenly, a notepad frame popped up. I was shocked at that time. Let me guess, was it Fat Dragon who urged you to update?" Poplar Fruit laughed. Fat Dragon was also laughing at the side, but he didn't reply. Three Tigers Xing continued, "That's right. The words in the notebook popped up on their own. That tone was the same as my book review page. They even confidently said that I'm not good enough and that I only update once a day or something. At that time, I was in happy times and was considered a high-ranking person. I was usually very busy, so how could I have time to update?" Three Tigers Xing said, "Even now, I still think that updating once a day is a hooligan's behavior. How uncomfortable is it to keep the readers in suspense every day?" Fat Dragon laughed and said, "Did you update more after that?" Poplar Fruit asked curiously. At that time, he had already gone to high school in the city, so he didn't remember what happened after. "Nope." Fat Dragon laughed. "That's why I'm still brooding about it. You're considered the best out of all the readers, okay?" Three Tigers Xing laughed. "You're the first person in the world to see my updates, and you're still not satisfied? Anyway, it's because of this matter that we got to know each other." Three Tigers Xing recalled, "I used to work in Jinshan. Although I wasn't in the Poison Tyrant software department, I still have some understanding of hackers. My computer's anti-intrusion system was pretty advanced, but it was still broken by Fat Dragon's name. At that time, I knew that his hacking skills were strong. AI, that's all in the past." Fat Dragon said modestly. "New week, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to..." Chapter 425. After ordering, Tiger Xing asked Poplar Fruit if he wanted a drink. Tiger Xing was from Shanzhong province, so alcohol was a must for every meal in the north. However, they were in the south, and he was facing Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled as he declined. He used Kiki as an excuse, so Tiger Xing didn't force him. Although he knew that Tiger Xing wasn't just here to chat, Poplar Fruit was still curious and continued to chat. "Oh right, Uncle Who, I haven't seen you write a new book after finishing Mercenary World. Did you change your pen name?" "No, I haven't." Tiger Xing smiled. "I went to work for an MMORPG company. Uncle Who even became the CEO of that company." Fat Dragon added, "I've played their MMORPG before. It's average, but Uncle Who runs it well." "Oh." Poplar Fruit nodded as he thought about it. Games. Poplar Fruit was starting to understand why Tiger Xing was here. "I'm not here today because of Genghis Khan's game." Tiger Xing was good at reading people's expressions. He smiled and said, "I've already resigned from my previous company and started my own company called Lutte d'Angers." Finally, they got to the main topic. Yanhua nodded and continued to listen. "Our company is currently working on a game called IMMT. Are you familiar with this name, Poplar Fruit?" Tiger Xing asked. Poplar Fruit shook his head lightly. "Not really. I haven't played a game in a long time, but I think I've seen it on the internet. It's based on a cartoon, right? That's right. Our game is based on the cartoon and has the same name. Tiger Xing smiled and introduced. To put it simply, it's an MMORPG, but we're using a card battle mode. Players can collect and combine various cards to level up. This way, our players can experience the thrill of an MMORPG without having to do too much. Sounds pretty good. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, I agree with you. If mobile games are too demanding, no one will play them. Poplar Fruit, you could give it a try. I brought our initial version of the game today. After receiving Poplar Fruit's praise, Tiger Xing excitedly took out an iPad from his backpack and handed it to Poplar Fruit. This game hasn't been released yet. It's still being perfected, 3 Tiger Xing said as he looked at Poplar Fruit carefully. Poplar Fruit took it and looked at it carefully. I haven't played games a long time. It's not bad for Fat Dragon to try out this game, but it's a waste for me to play it. Poplar Fruit tapped on the iPad a few times before putting it down. Kiki was very interested in the iPad. She poked her head and hand out from time to time, wanting to touch it. I've played it before. It's pretty fun. Fat Dragon smiled as he poured everyone a cup of tea. But isn't your logo very similar to Blizzard's Warcraft? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Haha, to be exact, it's World of Warcraft. 3 Tiger Xing smiled and said, We've copied many of the classic World of Warcraft dungeons. Won't that be a violation of copyright? Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. It's hard to say. It depends on Blizzard's mood. 3 Tiger Xing said awkwardly. We're not plagiarizing. It's not plagiarizing at all. We're just changing our style and method to reflect the dungeon storyline. So, you're here today because you want me to plead with Blizzard so that they won't pursue the matter? Poplar Fruit suddenly asked. 3 Tiger Xing was stunned. He shook his head and said, No, we've already considered this when we were designing the game. Although we've used some references, it's not plagiarism. So, even if Blizzard pursues the matter, we won't have any evidence to use against them. All right, don't keep me in suspense. Fat Dragon impatiently picked up a dish that had just been served and put it into his mouth. He said, Let's eat first. Let me tell you, Guozi, Uncle Tiger came here today for nothing else but your 2 free promotional spots for Blizzard. So it's really that. Poplar Fruit suddenly realized. He had already guessed it when 3 Tiger Xing said that he worked for a game company. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but look at Fat Dragon with a grumpy expression. It was all because of his big mouth. Not many people knew that Poplar Fruit had made a lot of money by selling card games. Other than Zheng Yujia, Song Juwen, and a few other close friends, only a few family members knew. Even Poplar Fruit's parents didn't know the details. Poplar Fruit had met Fat Dragon the last time he went back. Poplar Fruit had talked to him about it. Poplar Fruit didn't say how much money he had made, but he had also talked about the thrill of visiting Blizzard and the fact that Blizzard had promised to help him promote the 2 games for free because they owed him a favor. However, he still smiled and said, I think this promise is nonsense. I don't know anything about game design. This is just a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. If you really want to thank me, you might as well give me cash. Yes, Poplar Fruit, I really need your 2 spots. 3 Tiger Xing said sincerely. There aren't many good domestic games, but I think that with Blizzard's recommendation and our own hard work, we can definitely make the best domestic game. Poplar Fruit asked curiously, Don't you only have IMMT? Why do you need 2 spots? 3 Tiger Xing said a little embarrassedly. One of the slots is for IMMT, and the other is for the game that I'm going to modify with Mercenary World. Poplar Fruit admitted that Mercenary of the World was indeed very suitable for a game. The setting, the map, the variety of characters, and the various races were all unique. However, being suitable for a game didn't mean that it could be adapted into a fun game. There were many excellent novels that had been ruined by game developers. Seeing that Poplar Fruit was hesitating, Fat Dragon persuaded. Poplar Fruit, those 2 spots are useless to you anyway. Why don't you sell them and exchange them for money? Isn't that what you said to me? Poplar Fruit glared at him and said, How is that the same? I said that Blizzard would give me money. These 2 spots are the favors that Blizzard and my friends owe me. If I exchange them for money, am I still human? Can we still be friends? That cough cough. 3 Tiger Xing waved his hand weakly between them and coughed. He said a little embarrassedly, Poplar fruit, I don't want to buy them with money. He stammered and said with a red face, Our company doesn't have much money now. We can't afford to buy them. Chapter 426. Yang Wu was stunned. Even Fat Dragon, who was the middleman, was stunned. What was the meaning of this? Did he want it for free? Based on what? Based on the fact that he was once the author of a novel that Poplar Fruit followed? Wasn't that ridiculous? Fat Dragon couldn't help but ask, Uncle Hu, what did you say? 3 Tiger Xing explained with a red face. Our company really doesn't have any money left. It's like this. It turned out that a year ago, Tiger Xing and his 5 friends had set up this company. At that time, they had only $3 million in capital. Originally, they had a bright future because they were all veterans in the industry. On average, each of them had more than 6 years of game development experience. Before they set up their company, they had countless achievements. However, a few months ago, in order to get the exclusive rights to I Am MT, Lu Dongjue threw in $3 million. Lu Dongjue didn't have a lot of funds to begin with, and this amount of money was a huge investment for Lu Dongjue. After a few months of development, the game was starting to take shape, but Lu Dongjue had reached the point where they had to resort to layoffs to keep the company running. If other big game developers like NetEase knew that Poplar Fruit had 2 powerful weapons in his hands, they would definitely flock to him. They wouldn't even bat an eye if he asked for $3 million. However, for the current Lu Dongjue, they couldn't even afford $300,000, let alone $3 million. Hearing this, Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, It doesn't matter if Lu Dongjue has the money or not. I won't sell this favor for money because I'd feel bad if I let my friends down. My suggestion is this. 3 Tiger Xing carefully looked at Poplar Fruit's expression and said, I'll use Lu Dong's shares in exchange. And after Poplar Fruit owns the shares in Lu Dongjue, then the game will be yours. That way, you won't let your friends down because you'll have a share of the games they recommend. This made Poplar Fruit feel very conflicted. He helplessly glared at Fat Dragon. Originally, it was fine, but Fat Dragon had caused trouble for him. This really made Poplar Fruit's head hurt. Uncle Hu, Fat Dragon said, I want to discuss with Guoguo. Why don't you go and see if there are any drinks and ask the front desk for one for Guoguo's daughter. Fat Dragon was very straightforward. He wanted to send Tiger Xing away. Tiger Xing understood. He smiled and said, Okay, I'll see if there's any coconut or milk. With that, he got up and left. After the door closed, Poplar Fruit immediately turned around and stared at Fat Dragon. What are you doing? Are you trying to trick me? Why didn't you discuss this with me before? Now that he's here, how do you expect me to reject him? Stop, don't be angry, Fat Dragon said with a smile. You're also my relative. Moreover, with our many years of friendship, why would I trick you? Poplar Fruit wanted to say something, but Fat Dragon interrupted him. Listen to me first. I've been in contact with Uncle Hu all these years. He's a good person, and he's very good at business. He's someone who can accomplish things. You stay at home every day. What do you know about being able to accomplish things? Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Fat Dragon's face under the bridge that day. Sigh, I'm really not lying to you. Fat Dragon smiled. You've seen his game, and I've played it too. I said it was good just now because I didn't want Tiger Xing to raise the price. In fact, I think this game is quite interesting. Although it hasn't been tested yet, it's definitely a game that will be popular. Poplar Fruit looked at Fat Dragon suspiciously. Fat Dragon advised, I'm thinking for your own good. At that time, I thought that since you owe me a favor, I might as well sell it for a good price. I just didn't expect Lu Dong to be so poor. But now's a good opportunity. Didn't you see? He's even willing to exchange his shares for it. Fat Dragon's eyes flashed as he laughed. Lu Dong isn't worth much now, but once the game is released, it'll definitely be worth a lot of money. If you don't believe me, just take a look. But why do I feel that it's not reliable? Poplar Fruit mumbled. I don't know much about games, and I know even less about mobile games. If I own a mobile game company, wouldn't I be easily cheated? I'm not lying to you. Fat Dragon patted his chest and said, with my many years of gaming experience, my name main tank will definitely be popular in the future. Mobile games are very profitable, and even I want to make a mobile game. Poplar Fruit hesitated and said, no, I need to think about this. It's okay, think about it. Fat Dragon said casually, you're waiting for the right price to sell, so don't be in a hurry. The longer you drag it out, the more shares he might give you. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes at Fat Dragon and said, I haven't agreed to sell. Don't add fuel to the fire. I know. Fat Dragon said nonchalantly. Fat Dragon went out to call 3 Tiger Shing back. 3 Tiger Shing raised his phone and said to Poplar Fruit, Poplar Fruit, I just talked to the other partners in my company, and we're willing to exchange 10% of our shares for it. Poplar Fruit said straightforwardly, Uncle Who, this is very important to me, and I need 2 days to think about it. 3 Tiger Shing didn't feel disheartened. He felt that as long as Poplar Fruit agreed to think about it, it meant that there was still hope. He could still fight for it. It was impossible for everything in life to be smooth sailing. The road to success was definitely full of difficulties and bumps. The most important thing was whether or not you worked hard to pursue it. If you gave up after encountering a little setback, then you wouldn't even be able to touch the tail of success. This was a principle that he had come to after so many years of struggling in society. It's okay, think about it. It's okay to think about it for a few more days. 3 Tiger Shing smiled. I'll be in Yangchang for the next few days, so if you have any questions, you can ask me directly. All right. 3 Tiger Shing took out a USB from his pocket and handed it to Poplar Fruit. This is our game, and there's an installation package inside. You could try it out. As he said that, he hesitated for a moment before adding, that's right, don't spread it. After all, the game hasn't been officially released yet. Regardless of whether he agreed or not, Poplar Fruit admired 3 Tiger Shing's positive attitude. He smiled and asked, Uncle Who, do you really believe in Fat Dragon's words that much? Just based on his words, you're sure that I have these 2 slots? That's not it. 3 Tiger Shing scratched his head and said, actually, the fact that you're selling games at Blizzard isn't a secret anymore. I have a very good colleague at Jinshan, and he's currently working at Blizzard's headquarters. I've already confirmed it with him. Chapter 427. After they finished talking about business, they didn't talk about the game during dinner. Instead, Triple Tiger Shing changed the topic to something that everyone was interested in. For example, he had some misunderstandings with Fat Dragon and all the interesting things that he had encountered during his years of working for various companies. All of these things made Poplar Fruit burst out in laughter. Before they left, Poplar Fruit asked about their accommodation arrangements. Triple Tiger Shing stayed in an express hotel, and Fat Dragon had relatives in Guangzhou, so Poplar Fruit didn't have to worry about them. Poplar Fruit smiled as he drove the sleepy Kiki home. Today's dinner topics were too profound for Chi-Chi to listen to. She tapped her bowl and chopsticks in boredom at the side. It was only 9 o'clock, but Chi-Chi was already sleepy as if she was listening to a lullaby. When they got home, Poplar Fruit searched for Triple Tiger Shing's information on the internet. There wasn't much information on the internet, but it was the same as what Triple Tiger Shing had told him. He hesitated for a moment, then dialed Zheng Yujia's number. What's up? It's late, and Kiki is asleep. You're bored, so you want to talk to me? Zheng Yujia was wrapped in a thin blanket and curled up on the sofa, watching a soap opera. Huh, why would I look for you if I'm bored? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, besides, do you think I'm bored? I knew you'd say that. Zheng Yujia looked at Poplar Fruit with disdain and said, say it, Mr. Poplar Fruit. You never visit a temple without a reason. What's the matter? Help me investigate a person in Beijing. Poplar Fruit briefly explained Triple Tiger Shing's situation. I was wondering who had provoked you. Isn't it just investigating a person? It's nothing. Wait a moment, I'll get someone to investigate for you. Zheng Yujia did not hang up the phone. Instead, she shuffled her slippers and jumped onto another sofa. Then, she picked up the landline and started dialing. Poplar Fruit listened to the conversation on the phone. He rubbed his nose and hung up. Eavesdropping wasn't a good idea. That's right, Poplar Fruit wanted Zheng Yujie to investigate Triple Tiger Xing's background. To be honest, what Fat Dragon said in the hotel did move Poplar Fruit. If he didn't use the favor, then it would be gone. He didn't need to stubbornly hold on to those 2 spots until the end of time. She did feel bad about selling the game for money, but she could feel at ease by exchanging shares for profit. After all, from the moment she obtained the shares, the game would be considered Yangguo's. However, he wasn't sure if he could trust Triple Tiger Xing. Poplar Fruit could trust that Fat Dragon wouldn't lie to him. However, Triple Tiger Xing might not. What if Triple Tiger Xing was also a big scammer who first tricked Fat Dragon and then tricked him? Don't think that Poplar Fruit's 2 spots weren't worth money. There was nothing to cheat. However, what if Triple Tiger Xing was a shell company? He tricked Poplar Fruit and Blizzard into giving him 2 spots and then sold them to other game companies. When that time came, Poplar Fruit wouldn't even know that he had been cheated. Therefore, whether Poplar Fruit accepted or not, it was important to confirm the other party's authenticity before considering. After a while, Zheng Yujie called back. That's right. I checked. There is such a company. The other information is also true. So fast? Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Of course. Don't you know who did it? Zheng Yujie was proud for a while. Then she explained, I have a friend who is an official in Zhongwanken. I just need to ask. Okay, I got it. Thank you. Poplar Fruit was about to put down the phone. Hey, Zheng Yujie quickly shouted. You're just going to throw me away after using me? Do you dislike me that much? Don't tell me Fong Bei is right next to you? When she said this name, Zheng Yujie was jealous of the jealousy in her voice. No, Poplar Fruit denied. Because there's nothing else. Do you want to continue talking? Poplar Fruit's honest answer made Zheng Yujie feel a little better. Maybe it was because she knew that Fong Bei wasn't next to Poplar Fruit in the middle of the night. She said, let's talk. It's rare for you to take the initiative to call me. Zheng Yujie said, but, Poplar Fruit, I think your business is quite big. You're a teacher in graduate school, a translator, and a CEO. Not only are you investing in the entertainment industry, but you're also planning to enter the high-tech game industry. Poplar Fruit said speechlessly, investing in Wana? Aren't you the one who dragged me into this? You're still blaming me. They were too familiar with each other. When they talked, they would occasionally mock each other. It wasn't necessarily a quarrel. It was just a reflection of friendship. Hey, look at you. You're always so slow. If I didn't act first and report later, would you be willing to invest money? Zheng Yujie curled her lips and waved her hand. Poplar Fruit, who had the grace of a southern man, seemed a little stingy when he spoke in front of Zheng Yujie, who was like a northern woman. However, Poplar Fruit didn't care. He also lay on the sofa and continued to talk to Zheng Yujie. It's not reasonable, but you said that I had to get involved. Didn't I agree? Isn't that enough of a friend? Okay, you're a good friend. Zheng Yujie didn't continue to dwell on this issue. She rolled her eyes and said, the 2 spots you mentioned, are they a bonus when you sold the game you designed with my daughter's friend? Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment. He decided not to explain to her whether the term my daughter's friend was correct. He simply said, yes. Zheng Yujie was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she said coquettishly, okay, I don't care. I want to invest too. Go and ask Tiger Xing if he wants to sell his company's shares. I'll buy as many as you have. Zheng Yujie said the last sentence very boldly. Didn't you say that you don't have money? Poplar Fruit asked, why are you so generous now? If you have money, pay me back first. Madam, it's 5 million. Ha ha. Zheng Yujie laughed dryly. Right, I don't have money. I forgot. Forget it. I won't get involved in this matter. You play by yourself. Bye-bye. After that, Zheng Yujie hung up the phone as if she was escaping. It wasn't that she couldn't pay back Poplar Fruit's money. It was only 5 million. Zheng Yujie didn't want to pay it back to Poplar Fruit. She wanted to do something with Poplar Fruit, so she dragged Poplar Fruit into this. If Poplar Fruit got away, wouldn't her little abacus fall through? Looking at the phone that had been hung up, Poplar Fruit sighed softly. He wasn't a stingy person. In his heart, he had no intention of chasing Zheng Yujie to pay back the money. Poplar Fruit more or less understood Zheng Yujie's thoughts. The reason why he used the excuse of asking Zheng Yujie to pay back the money to scare Zheng Yujie away was mainly because Poplar Fruit had other considerations in this matter. Poplar Fruit didn't want Fong Beibei to be implicated. If Fong Beibei saw Zheng Yujie getting involved, she would have a grudge in her heart. Chapter 428. Instead of sleeping, Poplar Fruit used his computer Skype to contact Alan in the United States. He did not have to worry about disturbing the residents because it was still daytime in the United States. Hi, Leon, long time no see. As soon as he logged on, Poplar Fruit saw Alan sitting in front of the computer with messy hair and dark circles under his eyes. He looked exhausted. Alan, what's wrong with you? Are you working overtime again? Poplar Fruit had already guessed the answer. When he chatted with Alan a few times, he knew that Blizzard had formed an elite team called Team 5 to develop the card game that he sold to Blizzard. Yeah, we were discussing a new card yesterday. We talked until 4 in the morning. Alan said as he rubbed his eyes. You didn't go home again? I think sister-in-law is going to be angry again. Poplar Fruit teased. Don't tell me you made sister-in-law so angry that she ran away from home again. Hey, Leon, you're wrong about that. Alan said proudly. Ever since the incident with the assassin, Linda has been obedient to me and never quarreled with me again. Poplar Fruit shook his head helplessly and said, Isn't it just a game? Why do you have to put in so much effort? You can't even do it during normal working hours? You don't know. No, you should know that you were the one who designed this game. Alan complained. Every time we add a card, there will be a lot of changes. If we are not careful, there will be a lot of problems with the balance of the game. Poplar Fruit also knew that when he handed in the goods, the number of cards was not enough. It might be okay if the two of them played in private. If it was released globally, the tactics would be studied thoroughly in a few days. What would be the point of playing then? He did not know how Fong Beibei's brain worked. She could actually perfect the values of hundreds of cards in just a few days. Maybe there were some flaws, but the balance was already very good. This computing ability was simply like a humanoid computer. Poplar Fruit felt that he was now a genius, but the real genius should be Fong Beibei. She was a genuine, innate genius, while Poplar Fruit could only be regarded as an acquired genius. Okay, no matter what, you have to take care of yourself. Poplar Fruit advised, don't always stay up late. Hee, Leon, you didn't look for me this time just to show concern for me, right? Although Alan was obsessed with games, he wasn't stupid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been the CEO of Blizzard. Yes, I'm looking for you for something else. Poplar Fruit said frankly, I have a game in my hands right now. My friend introduced it to me and said that it's pretty good. He wants me to invest in it and also want me to invite you guys to promote it. What game? Alan asked excitedly. When he talked about the game, his eyes, which had dark circles under them, lit up. I can make a copy for you to test, but you have to promise not to leak it to a third person. This is very important. Poplar Fruit said seriously. No problem. I'll play it myself. Wait, I'll talk to you on my own computer. Alan didn't wait for Poplar Fruit to stop him and went offline excitedly. After changing computers, Alan contacted Poplar Fruit again. Poplar Fruit said helplessly, Alan, you haven't finished listening to me. This isn't a PC game. This game needs to be installed on an iOS phone. I'll send a package to you now. Remember not to let anyone see it. Roger. Alan closed his fingers and waved his right hand at the right side of his head as if he was saluting Poplar Fruit. After downloading, Alan couldn't hold it in anymore. He forced his eyelids open and said to Poplar Fruit, Okay, Leon, I'll test the game for you now. I'll find you later. You have to pay attention to your rest. Before Yangwa could finish, Skype already showed that Alan had gone offline. Like a drug addict, Poplar Fruit shook his head lightly. He was right. To Alan, games were no less important than marijuana to drug addicts. Poplar Fruit had thought about giving the game to Alan for testing. Poplar Fruit wasn't a deep gamer himself, especially when it came to mobile and online games. I Am MT was both an online game, even though the beta version was single-player mode, and a mobile game. However, Poplar Fruit didn't think he could give a definite evaluation. It was better to let a professional evaluate it. If it was really good, then his investment was worth it. If even Alan didn't think it was good, then Poplar Fruit didn't think it was necessary to agree to 3 Tiger Shing's conditions. Poplar Fruit couldn't afford to lose face like this. If Blizzard helped promote the game, then at least the game had to be passable. I'll get Song Ji-win to test it tomorrow. Poplar Fruit thought to himself as he climbed into bed. Actually, if it was just Poplar Fruit's personal matter, he wouldn't have made such a big deal out of it. However, these 2 spots were shared between him and Fong Bei. Strictly speaking, these 2 spots were given to Poplar Fruit by Blizzard, but it's up to Poplar Fruit to think about it. When he woke up the next morning, Poplar Fruit glanced at the computer screen that hadn't been turned off all night. Seeing that there was still no news from Alan, he went out to train. When he came back, Poplar Fruit took the opportunity to get Song Ji-win's phone from Song Ji-win. "What's your dad doing?" Song Ji-win asked Kiki, who was sitting next to him and drinking her first bottle of milk in the morning, while eating porridge and taking 2 bites of the white and fat bun. Kiki vigilantly protected her milk bottle. When she saw that Uncle Mosquito didn't covet her milk, she put it down. She lowered her head and said in a low voice, "Papa is eating with Uncle Fat." After saying that, Chi-Chi even let out a burp. She tilted her head back and nodded. Even she herself was laughing. So many things had happened last night, but the only thing she remembered was the amazing fat dragon. Song Ji-win was confused by Chi-Chi's nonsensical answer. He shook his head blankly and said speechlessly, "What the hell? I don't understand." Uncle Mosquito is so stupid. Kiki held her milk bottle tightly with one hand and gestured in the air with the other hand. "Uncle Fat, this is so fat." After that, she burped again. "Don't talk. Drink your milk." Poplar Fruit came over and patted Kiki's chest gently with his palm. He said with a smile, "Drink more and you won't burp anymore." After dealing with Kiki, Poplar Fruit handed Song Ji-win's phone to him and said, "I installed a game for you. Help me see if it's fun. Don't let others see it." "Hey." Song Ji-win smiled and said, "Don't worry. I'll be very careful when playing games at work." After Song Ji-win left, Poplar Fruit began to think about what to do next. However, at around 9 o'clock, Poplar Fruit received a phone call. Chapter 429. The person who called was the dean, Chen Zongdai. When he saw the number, Poplar Fruit muttered, "How did the dean read it so fast?" Poplar Fruit's information was not short. It was more than 100,000 words. If it was a novel, it was not a problem to read 100,000 words in one night. However, it was impossible to read Poplar Fruit's 100,000 words in one night. With Poplar Fruit's fast reading speed, it was impossible for him to read 100,000 words in one night. At most, he could memorize it slowly. No matter what, since the dean called, Yanghua hurriedly picked it up. "Come to my office," Chen Zongdai said concisely. Teacher, aren't you on vacation? Are you still in the office?" Poplar Fruit asked strangely. "The students are on vacation. Why are we on vacation?" Chen Zongdai laughed. "The college entrance exam results are out. We don't need to recruit students? Are you saying that we don't need freshmen in the second half of this year?" "Okay," Poplar Fruit replied. "Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and come here. If it's not convenient, bring little Kiki here too." Chen Zongdai regarded Poplar Fruit as his favorite disciple. Usually when he talked to him, it was like they were family. It was common for him to speak in such an impatient tone. Before he could ask what was going on, Poplar Fruit reluctantly put down the phone. The teacher called. He had to go, even if he didn't want to. When they went out, Poplar Fruit put a cute pink beret on Kiki. This was bought by Zhang Yujie for Kiki in Beijing. It matched her dress today. Poplar Fruit himself was dressed more casually. However, after wearing a pair of sunglasses, his temperament went up another level. Opening the door of the back seat, Goldie swung the bell on its neck and ran in first. Poplar Fruit moved it to another position and installed the child safety seat. Poplar Fruit carefully fastened the seat belt for Kiki and said, "Don't make any noise in the back. Dad is driving, do you hear me? And you, Goldie." After arriving at the university, because it was the holidays, the campus of Higashiyama University was relatively quiet. Except for some students who did not go home during the holidays and some tourists, Poplar Fruit did not see anyone else. The parking space was not as crowded as usual. Poplar Fruit could park the car near the university building. Let's go. After we go up, the two of you are not allowed to be naughty. Otherwise, Grandpa Dean will spank you. Poplar Fruit smiled and scared Kiki. Kiki nodded solemnly. However, looking at her big round eyes, Poplar Fruit knew what she was thinking. Kiki liked Dean Shinzongdai's long beard the most. Although it was not as exaggerated as Old Man Whitestone's, it was still as long as a finger. As long as Kiki saw it, she would want to reach out and pull it. Poplar Fruit laughed in his heart. His playful heart also rose, and he did not warn Kiki again. After knocking on the door and entering Dean Chunzongdai's office, Poplar Fruit entered first. Chunzongdai then saw Kiki hiding behind Poplar Fruit. Kiki was holding a dog leash in one hand, and the other end was fastened to Goldie's collar. There was no other way. Yangcheng's management of large dogs, although Goldie was still young, golden retrievers were indeed large dogs, was very strict. If they did not have enough safety measures, they would be fined. Kiki turned her head and saw that Goldie did not come in. She pulled on the leash and called out in a childish voice, "Here, here." Then a golden figure ran in. Chunzongdai did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Goldie, who ran to his feet and sniffed around. "I said you could bring your daughter here, but in the end, you dragged your family and even brought your dog here?" Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "Kiki, this little guy is very clingy. I had no choice but to bring her out. Teacher, don't worry, Goldie will not bite or bark." After saying that, Poplar Fruit went back and closed the door. Then he squatted down and helped Kiki take off her little hat. He said to Kiki, "Kiki, you play with Goldie on the side. Daddy wants to talk to Grandpa Dean, okay?" Kiki stretched out her hands, and a sweet smile appeared on her face. She did her best to act cute to Chunzongdai. "Grandpa Dean, hug." Chunzongdai shuddered. He shook his head and waved his hands, tactfully declining. Huh. Grandpa Dean is not feeling well today. Next time. Last time, Chunzongdai still remembered the pain of Kiki plucking a few strands of his beard. This time, no matter what, he would not let Kiki have her way again. Kiki pouted her little mouth in dissatisfaction. Then, she clasped her fingers together in front of her chest, and her big watery eyes blinked pitifully. That pitiful look gave Chunzongdai the feeling that if he refused, he would be committing a big mistake, a big crime. Poplar Fruit snickered on the side. He was used to Kiki's little tricks of acting cute and pitiful, but he did not point it out. Okay, Grandpa Dean, hug, Grandpa Dean, hug, Kiki, don't cry." In the end, Chunzongdai could not resist the condemnation of his conscience. He walked out from behind his big desk and walked over to hug Kiki. "But, Grandpa Dean, let me tell you, you can't pluck anymore." Ouch. Before Chunzongdai could finish his words, Kiki suddenly attacked like lightning. Her right hand grabbed a few strands of his beard. One of the strands of beard that was not firmly rooted was pulled out by Kiki. The remaining strands were the worst. They pulled at his flesh, causing him great pain. He did not expect that Kiki would really do it and succeed. Poplar Fruit thought that the dean would dodge, so he wanted to see a battle of wits and courage between the two of them. Poplar Fruit hurriedly went up to take Kiki. He gently patted Kiki's little butt and said reproachfully, "Kiki, you're being naughty again." He wanted to clear his name, but Chunzongdai had lived for so many years. How could he not see through Poplar Fruit's little thoughts? He blew his beard and glared at Poplar Fruit. It's the father's fault for not teaching his son well. Poplar Fruit, you're too indulgent of your daughter. Poplar Fruit smiled apologetically. Yes, it's my fault. Please don't be angry with Kiki." Kiki did not care at all. She giggled and stretched out her hands, wanting Chunzongdai to hug her again. Chunzongdai would not get angry with a 3-year-old child over such a trivial matter. He shook his head with a wry smile, tapped Kiki's little head, and said, "You're always pulling my beard. I won't play with you next time." After a while, Poplar Fruit and Chunzongdai finally sat down. Chunzongdai picked up a thick stack of A4 paper from the table. It was all Poplar Fruit's writing. The dean was old, and it would be very tiring to look at the computer for a long time, so he was used to printing out all the documents. Chun Zongdai said, "I asked you to come here today mainly to discuss the translation theory you've written." Chapter 430. Chun Zongdai's choice of words was very interesting. He said discuss, not talk or chat, which showed that he did not think he was superior to his disciple on this issue. In today's conversation, he was no longer a teacher, but only a scholar in Poplar Fruit to conduct academic research. Indeed, Chun Zongdai was very interested in Poplar Fruit's translation theory. After lunch yesterday, Chun Zongdai flipped through the thought report given to him by Poplar Fruit, and the result was out of his control. Although Poplar Fruit only briefly introduced this theory in the 100,000 words material, he did not analyze it in depth. Of course, Poplar Fruit did not want to analyze it in depth. After all, it was unrealistic to give a group of translators who were engaged in applied translation for a living. They might fall asleep halfway through. This made Chun Zongdai very uncomfortable. He was a master in the field of functional translation theory, and he was also famous internationally. When faced with other theories, he could not help but nitpick a few bones in an egg. However, after flipping through 100,000 words, it was still so vague. How could he nitpick? Where should he start? Of course not. Teacher, you're exaggerating. I'm not the one who came up with this theory. This theory is already common in other countries. Yang was said with a smile. Popular? Then why haven't I seen anyone mention it when I go to conferences these past few years? Chun Zongdai said discontentedly. You can find a suitable rule for Chinese translation from the many languages that are as numerous as the stars in the sky. That is your own achievement. Although he might not agree with Poplar Fruit's translation theory, Chun Zongdai was still very protective of his disciples. He was very proud of his disciples' unique discovery in less than a year of learning linguistics. Whether it was a success or a failure, it was a great achievement. How many scholars have struggled and groped their way through the translation industry, but still failed to achieve anything? In this regard, Poplar Fruit was miles ahead of them. Of course, Poplar Fruit's humble words were not wrong. Poplar Fruit's theory did not completely come from his own imagination. To be precise, this theory had its own master. In the translation of Dravidian and Surinamese, translators from both countries would conventionally use the theory of variation, and the results were not bad. Poplar Fruit recently discovered that thousands of years ago, when ancient Sanskrit was translated into Hindi or Bengali, the same theory of variation was used. Not many people knew ancient Sanskrit, but Hindi and Bengali were two languages that were widely spread. Bengali was ranked 7th in the world. This piqued Poplar Fruit's interest. He looked for a lot of information, especially the research materials of the recently deceased Master Ji. Poplar Fruit carefully read dozens of tomes. Master Ji was an expert in the study of ancient Sanskrit, and no one could match him in the past 100 years. Master Ji also had a deep understanding of German. During World War II, he studied and taught at the University of Göttingen in Germany for 10 years. Interestingly, although thousands of years had passed, the theories of variation used in Dravidian and ancient Sanskrit translation were of the same origin. These were only briefly mentioned in Master Ji's works, and there was no detailed analysis. Perhaps Master Ji thought that ancient Sanskrit and European languages were of the same origin. The so-called Indo-European family did not need to be considered. For so many years in the Chinese language field, it was impossible that Poplar Fruit was the only one who understood these theories. Perhaps those scholars were used to thinking that the theory of translation between languages of the same origin did not have much guidance for the unique Chinese translation. Therefore, the research of this theory was like a desert in China. Poplar Fruit could not find any relevant information on the internet. But was this theory really not working? Poplar Fruit did not think so. Poplar Fruit knew 13 languages. Currently in the horizontal development stage, he did not learn any new languages for the time being. So Poplar Fruit could easily read the classics of other countries. Just from the small part that could be found on the internet, Poplar Fruit already had a macro understanding of this theory. Furthermore, his learning speed was too fast. Even if he only took a simple look, after a few days of digesting in his mind, it would become a branch on his own tree of knowledge. Therefore, after understanding and mastering the theory of variation translation, Poplar Fruit realized that although this theory did not play any role in traditional literary translation, it could be used like a fish in water in translation, which was the most popular application in the market. For example, the translation of some advertising slogans. This was a translation project that many translators had to rack their brains to come up with a satisfactory conclusion. With the guidance of this theory, Poplar Fruit could quickly find a way to solve the problem. Poplar Fruit knew that it was impossible to accept a foreign theory completely. He also had to practice before he got rid of the bad and kept the good, and came up with a brand new variation translation theory. So this theory was kicked out by Poplar Fruit? Not exactly. Although Chen Zongdai had some understanding of the ins and outs of this theory from the information given by Poplar Fruit, after listening to Poplar Fruit's statement, he still sighed and said, "It seems that I have wronged you before." Chen Zongdai knew that his disciple was a language maniac. He was not satisfied with learning 13 foreign languages. He himself was only proficient in English and Spanish. He could speak a few unorthodox languages, but he could not master them. Compared to Poplar Fruit, he was somewhat inferior. However, Chen Zongdai had always been critical of Poplar Fruit's crazy learning of new languages. He had told Poplar Fruit many times, "Learning too much without mastering it is a taboo in learning. You will not be able to achieve your own achievements. You can't go on like this. Be careful not to imitate others." But now, Chen Zongdai was a little embarrassed because Poplar Fruit's theory was the result of receiving a lot of information and resources. If Poplar Fruit had listened to him and stubbornly stuck to the language that had been thoroughly studied in China, then Poplar Fruit would not have been able to write today's material. "Teacher, what are you talking about?" Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Your guidance has been very helpful to me. In the past 2 months, I have stopped learning new languages and deeply understood and studied the languages I've already learned. I have improved a lot. If you test me on linguistics again, I promise I can give you an answer by inference." Chen Zongdai laughed and said, "Okay, don't flatter me. Hurry up and tell me the details of your theory." Here, Xiaohan wants to say that the content of this chapter is purely fiction. If there are similarities, it is definitely a coincidence. In addition, the theory of adaptation has long been a theory in the translation field. Don't take it too seriously. Just treat it as if Poplar Fruit is in a parallel world. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.